Welcome back to another evening of shared stories and adventures. Tonight we're diving into what might actually happen when Fallout returns for its second season. I'll be covering all the major theories, clues, and production breadcrumbs that I can fit in for tonight. So we'll start with the quieter character moments and slowly move to the world-ending revelations that could reshape the entire wasteland. But if you like what I do here and want a way to support the channel, consider subscribing to me to see more. But for now, grab your blanket and your Pip-Boy, get cozy, and let's begin. The first season of Fallout ended with 3 massive reveals that flipped the entire game board. Lucy McLean stood in front of her father's empty cryopod in a Vault-Tec facility beneath the ruins, learning that the man who raised her had been alive since before the bombs fell. Across the wasteland, the ghoul, formerly known as Cooper Howard, discovered that his ex-wife, Barb, had been one of the architects of nuclear annihilation itself, selling the end of the world as a product launch. And in the most visually stunning final shot of the year, we watched New Vegas light up on the horizon, its neon glow promising that the Mojave Wasteland and all its factions are about to enter the story. Season 2 has to answer what happens next, and the clues are already scattered across interviews, set photos, and the careful architecture of that first season. You're going to see Lucy confront what it means when your moral compass was programmed by a lie. You're going to watch the ghoul chase down the truth about his family and whether his daughter, Janie, is still out there in some frozen box waiting for a world that will never be clean again. And you're going to see the new California Republic pick itself up from the ashes of Shady Sands and decide whether it wants revenge, rebuilding, or both. But here's the extra part that most breakdowns won't tell you. The showrunners have confirmed in multiple interviews that Season 2 will introduce at least one new vault with the experiment we haven't seen in any game, and that experiment is directly tied to the question of who actually pushed the button first. That's not speculation, that's on the record, so while everyone is busy arguing about whether Mr. House is still alive in his lucky 38 tower, or whether the Brotherhood will march on Vegas, the real story might be buried in another social experiment that Vault-Tec ran to see just how far human beings could fall when you give them the illusion of control. We'll get to that. But first, let's talk about what Lucy is going to do now that her entire childhood has been revealed as a stage play written by a man who helped end the world. Lucy McLean spent 8 episodes learning that the surface was more complicated than the Vault education films promised. She watched her brother Norman uncover the truth about their mother's escape and execution. She survived cannibal organ harvesters, corrupt overseers, and a ghoul who kept her alive just long enough to use her as bait. And at the end of it all, she walked into that Buds Buds facility and saw the rows of frozen Vault-Tec executives sleeping through the centuries, waiting for middle management to wake them when the quarterly reports looked good again. Her father, Hank McLean, had already fled toward the New Vegas skyline. The question for Season 2 is whether Lucy follows him to get answers, follows him to get revenge, or follows him because she still believes that somewhere under the lies there's a dad worth saving. The smart money is on all 3. Ella Purnell, who plays Lucy, mentioned in a post-finale interview that Lucy's optimism isn't gone, it's just been tested, and that Season 2 will explore what happens when someone with a good heart has to make decisions in a world that punishes goodness. That's a very specific tease. It suggests that Lucy won't turn into a cynical wasteland survivor overnight. She'll try to hold on to her Vault values, the golden rule, the idea that people are fundamentally good if you give them a chance. And the wasteland will keep punching her in the face for it until she has to choose between who she was and who she needs to become. The dramatic engine of her arc is that tension. She's not going to become the ghoul. She's not going to become Maximus. She's going to become something new, and the writers have already planted the seeds for what that looks like. In Episode 6, Lucy had a conversation with her mother's memory, or what was left of it, a feral ghoul who no longer recognized her own daughter. Lucy still tried to reach her. She still spoke gently. She still wanted to believe that love could survive radiation and time and the total collapse of identity. That scene wasn't just emotional setup. It was thematic blueprint. Season 2 is going to ask whether Lucy can love her father and still hold him accountable for what he did. The answer will probably be yes, but the cost of that answer is going to be brutal. Because Hank isn't just a man who lied to his daughter. He's a man who destroyed an entire city to protect a secret, and that city was Shady Sands, and the people who survived it are going to want his head on a pike. Let's talk about Shady Sands for a moment, because it's the emotional center of the entire Season 2 setup. In the Fallout games, Shady Sands was the capital of the new California Republic, the closest thing the wasteland had to a functioning democracy. It had schools, laws, taxes, elections, all the boring infrastructure that keeps people from eating each other when the crops fail. And then, according to the timeline revealed in Season 1, it was destroyed in 2277 by a nuclear explosion. The show didn't tell us who launched the bomb, but it very clearly told us who benefited. Vault-Tec had spent 2 centuries running experiments and waiting for the surface to soften up enough for recolonization. A thriving NCR was bad for business. A crater where Shady Sands used to be was an opportunity. Hank McClane was the overseer of Vault 33, but before that he was a resident of Shady Sands. His wife Rose left the vault and took their kids to the surface, trying to give them a life in the sun. Hank went after them, and based on the timeline and the way the show framed his flashbacks, he was there when Shady Sands fell. The implication, and it's more than an implication, it's practically text, is that Hank either launched the bomb himself or knew it was coming and did nothing to stop it. He brought Lucy and Norman back to Vault 33, locked the door, and told them their mother was dead. He raised them on lies and Vault propaganda, and he did it all to protect the Vault-Tec mission. Season 2 has to reckon with that. And the person who's going to make him reckon with it is probably Moldaver. Moldaver died at the end of Season 1, but her legacy didn't. She was the leader of a surface faction that had been fighting Vault-Tec for decades, and she was the one who kidnapped Hank and dragged him to the Griffith Observatory to power up the cold fusion reactor that could give the wasteland clean, infinite energy. She was also, and this is the part the show played quietly, a pre-war scientist who knew Coop Howard's wife, Barb. She was at the same Vault-Tec meeting where the corporations divided up the vaults and planned their experiments. She heard them talk about dropping the bombs, and she spent the next 200 years trying to undo it. Moldaver is dead, but her people aren't, and her people know exactly what Hank did. Season 2 is going to put Lucy in a room with the survivors of Shady Sands and make her choose between her father and the truth. That's not a theory. That's just basic dramatic structure. Now let's pivot to the Ghoul, because his story is moving on a parallel track that's going to smash into Lucy's arc somewhere around the midpoint of the season. Cooper Howard was a movie star before the war, a cowboy actor who sold vault space in commercials and smiled for the cameras while his marriage fell apart. He found out his wife was helping Vault-Tec plan the apocalypse, and he didn't stop it. Maybe he didn't believe it. Maybe he didn't know how. Maybe he was already too late. The show hasn't told us yet. What it has told us is that Coop's daughter Janie was with him the day the bombs fell, and after that the trail goes cold. The Ghoul has been searching for her for 2 centuries, and the only clue he has is that Vault-Tec employees and their families were supposed to be protected. That means Janie might be in a vault somewhere, frozen or awake. And if she's awake, she's lived an entire life without him. If she's frozen, she's still a child, and he's a radioactive corpse who can barely remember what it felt like to be human. Walton Goggins, who plays the Ghoul, said in an interview that Season 2 will explore whether Cooper is still in there or whether the Ghoul has completely taken over. That's a question of identity, and it's the same question Lucy is facing from the opposite direction. Lucy is trying to stay good in a world that rewards cruelty. Cooper is trying to stay human in a body that's already dead. The show is setting them up as mirrors, and eventually they're going to have to work together because the thing they both want, answers about Vault-Tec and what happened to their families, is buried in the same place. New Vegas. New Vegas is the crown jewel of the Mojave Wasteland, and if you've played Fallout New Vegas, you know it's also the most politically complicated location in the entire franchise. It's controlled by Mr. House, a pre-war billionaire who turned himself into a computer and runs the city through an army of robots. It's surrounded by the NCR to the west, Caesar's Legion to the east, and about a dozen smaller factions who all want a piece of the action. The game was about choosing which faction to support and watching the others burn. The show is going to have to navigate that same minefield, and based on the way Season 1 ended, it's going to do it by putting Lucy, the Ghoul, and Maximus right in the middle of the crossfire. Maximus is the wild card here. He's a Brotherhood of Steel squire who spent Season 1 pretending to be a knight, falling in love with Lucy, and accidentally becoming a hero. He ended the season by taking credit for bringing back the cold fusion technology, which means the Brotherhood now thinks he's a valuable asset instead of a disposable grunt. That's good for his survival. That's bad for his soul. The Brotherhood of Steel is a techno-fascist military cult that hoards pre-war technology and kills anyone who gets in their way. They're not the good guys. Maximus knows that. He's seen them execute deserters and torture prisoners and treat wastelanders like vermin. But he's also spent his entire life trying to earn their approval because the Brotherhood saved him from the ruins of Shady Sands when he was a kid, and he doesn't have anywhere else to go. Season 2 is going to force him to choose between the Brotherhood and Lucy, and that choice is going to hurt. Aaron Moten, who plays Maximus, has said that his character's arc in Season 2 is about figuring out what kind of man he wants to be when no one is watching. That's code for a betrayal plot. Maximus is going to be ordered to do something terrible, probably something involving Lucy or the people she's trying to protect. And he's going to have to decide whether he follows orders or follows his conscience. The Brotherhood is marching toward New Vegas, and they're not going there to sightsee. They're going there to take control of Mr. House's robot army and whatever other pre-war tech is buried under the casinos. If Maximus helps them, he's complicit in whatever atrocities they commit. If he stops them, he's a traitor, and the Brotherhood kills traitors slowly. Here's where it gets interesting. The showrunners have confirmed that Season 2 will introduce the NCR remnants as a major faction, and that means we're going to meet the survivors of Shady Sands who've been regrouping in the Mojave. Some of them will want to rebuild the Republic. Some of them will want revenge on Vault-Tec and everyone who helped destroy their home. And some of them will just want to survive long enough to see their kids grow up in a world that isn't actively trying to kill them. Lucy is going to be caught between all three groups because her father is the man who destroyed Shady Sands, and her new friends are the people who lost everything because of him. That's a tragedy waiting to happen, and the only question is whether Lucy can stop it or whether she's going to be forced to choose a side and live with the consequences. The cold fusion reactor is the other big piece of the puzzle. Moldover died to activate it, and now it's sitting in the Griffith Observatory pumping out clean energy that could power entire settlements. Whoever controls that reactor controls the future of the wasteland. The Brotherhood wants it. The NCR remnants want it. Mr. House probably wants it, assuming he's still alive. And Vault-Tec definitely wants it because clean energy means people don't need vaults anymore. And that's bad for the brand. Season 2 is going to be a race to see who gets there first. And Lucy is going to be right in the middle of it because she's the one who helped Moldover turn it on, and that makes her a target for everyone. Let's talk about the vaults for a minute because Vault-Tec's experiments are the backbone of the entire Fallout universe. And Season 1 only scratched the surface. We saw Vault 33, which was a control vault designed to produce compliant managers. We saw Vault 32, which was supposed to be identical to 33, but turned into a murder-suicide when the residents discovered the truth about the surface. And we saw Vault 31, which was full of frozen Vault-Tec executives waiting to be thawed out and put in charge when the time was right. Those three vaults were connected, literally and thematically, and they were all part of the same experiment. But Vault-Tec built over 100 vaults, and each one had a different experiment. Some were designed to test human endurance, some were designed to test social cohesion, and some were designed to answer very specific questions about human nature. Questions like, what happens when you tell people they're in control but rig the system so they never actually are? The showrunners have said that Season 2 will introduce a new vault, and based on the way they've been talking about it, this vault's experiment is going to be directly tied to the question of who launched the first bomb. That's a huge deal because the Fallout games have always been deliberately vague about whether the US or China fired first. The show seems to be leaning toward the idea that Vault-Tec launched the bombs themselves or at least made sure the war went nuclear when it didn't have to. Barb Howard's line in the finale about how Vault-Tec's job was to make sure they had a product worth buying was pretty much a confession. But the show hasn't given us the smoking gun yet, and a Vault experiment designed to test human behavior under the belief that they caused the apocalypse would be exactly the kind of twisted social science that Vault-Tec would greenlight. Imagine a vault where the residents are told that their vault was responsible for launching the nukes. Imagine the guilt, the paranoia, the way people would turn on each other trying to figure out who pushed the button. Imagine the overseer having to maintain order while everyone inside believes they're complicit in the death of the world. That's a Vault-Tec experiment. That's the kind of psychological torture they built entire facilities to observe. And if that vault exists, and if Lucy or the Ghoul or Maximus stumbles into it, they're going to find records, logs, evidence that proves what Vault-Tec did. That's the smoking gun. That's the reveal that turns the entire wasteland against the vaults and makes Season 3 about tearing down the system instead of just surviving it. The other thing we need to talk about is Mr. House, because if you know the games, you know he's the single most important figure in New Vegas, and if the show is going to Vegas, it has to deal with him. Robert House was a genius inventor and CEO of Robco Industries before the war. He predicted the nuclear exchange down to the day, and he spent his fortune building an army of Securitron robots and a defense system to protect the Vegas Strip from the bombs. He succeeded mostly. Vegas survived. But House's body didn't. He hooked himself up to a life support system that kept his brain alive inside a sealed chamber. And he's been running the city through computer screens and robot proxies for over 200 years. In the game, you could choose to help him, kill him, or ignore him. The show doesn't have that luxury. If Lucy and the Ghoul are heading to Vegas, they're going to have to deal with House, and House is going to have opinions about vault dwellers and ghouls wandering into his city asking questions about Vault-Tec. Here's the thing that makes House fascinating as a character. He's not evil. He's not good. He's a pragmatist who believes that humanity's best chance for survival is autocratic technocracy, which is a fancy way of saying he thinks he should be in charge because he's smarter than everyone else, and he's probably right. House wants to rebuild civilization, but he wants to rebuild it his way, with him at the top and everyone else following the plan. He doesn't care about democracy. He doesn't care about freedom. He cares about efficiency and progress and making sure that humanity doesn't blow itself up a second time. That puts him in direct conflict with the NCR, who want democracy, and the Brotherhood, who want theocracy, and Lucy, who just wants people to stop lying to each other for 5 minutes. The actor who might play House hasn't been announced yet, but the showrunners have dropped hints that he'll appear in Season 2 and that his relationship with Vault-Tec is more complicated than the games ever explored. In Fallout New Vegas, House and Vault-Tec were separate entities. House built his own bunker and his own plan. But the show has been very careful to connect every major corporation to Vault-Tec's conspiracy. We saw representatives from Westech, the company that created super mutants. We saw Repcon Aerospace, the company that built the rockets. We saw Big MT, the think tank that shows up in the Old World Blues DLC. All of them were at that table with Barb Howard dividing up the vaults and planning their experiments. Robco was House's company, and if Robco was part of the conspiracy, that means House knew the bombs were coming because he helped plan it. That changes everything. If House was part of Vault-Tec's plan, then his whole story about predicting the war and heroically saving Vegas is a lie. He didn't save Vegas. He just made sure his investment was protected when his colleagues ended the world. And if that's true, then the Ghoul is going to want his head, because House would have known that Coop's wife was involved, and he said nothing. Lucy is going to want answers, because House's robots are probably guarding the Vault-Tec facilities under Vegas, and she needs to get inside to find her father. And Maximus is going to be caught in the middle, because the Brotherhood's entire mission is to take House's technology, and he's the only one with the power armor and the training to actually do it. Season 2 is setting up a 3-way siege of the Lucky 38, and it's going to be messy. Now let's talk about the NCR remnants, because they're the emotional heart of the conflict and the faction that has the most legitimate grievance. The New California Republic was the success story of the wasteland. It proved that people could build something better than raiders and tribals and endless violence. And then it was destroyed, deliberately, by people who saw its success as a threat. The survivors have spent years scattered across the Mojave, hiding from the Brotherhood, avoiding House's patrols, and trying to figure out how to rebuild when everything they built was taken from them. Some of them joined Moldover's faction, some of them went underground, and some of them are still wearing the old NCR Ranger armor, waiting for someone to give the order to fight back. The show has cast several new characters for Season 2, and while names haven't been officially released, set photos and casting calls have confirmed that we're going to meet an NCR Ranger, a former NCR Senator, and a group of wastelanders who are trying to restart the government in exile. That's not a side plot. That's a main plot. The NCR is going to be the moral center of the season. The group that represents what the wasteland could be if people stopped killing each other long enough to build something. And Lucy is going to be drawn to them because they represent everything Vault 33 pretended to be. They're not perfect. They're going to have internal conflicts and political infighting and people who want revenge more than they want justice. But they're trying, and in the wasteland, trying is revolutionary. The tension is going to come from the fact that Lucy's father is the man who destroyed them. Hank McLean is the reason their families are dead. He's the reason their city is a crater. And Lucy is going to have to stand in front of them and explain why they shouldn't execute him on sight. She's not going to be able to defend what he did. She's not going to be able to say he's a good man who made a mistake. The best she's going to be able to do is argue that killing him won't bring Shady Sands back, and that if they want to rebuild the NCR, they need to be better than the people who destroyed it. That's a hard sell when you're talking to someone whose kids died in the blast. That's an impossible sell when you're talking to someone who spent 20 years dreaming about revenge. But Lucy is going to try anyway, because that's who she is. And the show is going to make us watch her fail and keep trying until she either succeeds or breaks. Maximus is going to be the bridge between Lucy and the NCR, because he's from Shady Sands. He was a kid when the bomb went off. The Brotherhood found him in the rubble and recruited him, and he spent his entire life trying to prove he's worthy of being saved, but he's never gone back. He's never looked for other survivors. He's never asked what happened to his neighbors or his friends or the people who lived on his street. He buried that part of himself because it was easier than grieving, and the Brotherhood encouraged it because soldiers who care about the past don't follow orders as well. Season 2 is going to force him to go back, literally and emotionally, and confront what he lost. And when he meets the NCR remnants, he's going to have to decide whether he's a Brotherhood squire or a Shady Sands survivor, because he can't be both anymore. Aaron Moten has said in interviews that Maximus's arc is about identity and belonging, and that Season 2 will test whether he's been loyal to the Brotherhood because he believes in their mission or because he's afraid of being alone. That's a devastating question. And the answer is probably the second one. Maximus doesn't believe in the Brotherhood's ideology. He's seen too much. He knows they're brutal and corrupt and more interested in hoarding power than helping people. But they gave him a purpose when he had nothing, and that's a debt that's hard to walk away from. The NCR is going to offer him a different kind of belonging, one based on shared trauma instead of shared violence, and he's going to have to choose. The Brotherhood is going to order him to kill NCR survivors. The NCR is going to ask him to betray the Brotherhood, and Lucy is going to be standing in the middle, begging both sides to stop shooting long enough to realize they're not each other's real enemy. The real enemy, of course, is Vault-Tec, and Season 2 is going to start peeling back the layers of their plan. We know from Season 1 that Vault-Tec didn't just build shelters, they built laboratories. Every vault was designed to answer a question, and the people inside were the test subjects. Vault 12 in Necropolis had a door that didn't seal to study the effects of radiation on humans. Vault 11 forced residents to sacrifice one person every year, or everyone would die, to study obedience and rebellion. Vault 77 had one man and a crate of puppets to study isolation and madness. These weren't accidents. These were experiments with control groups and variables and quarterly reports sent back to headquarters. And the reason Vault-Tec ran these experiments was because they were planning for the long game. They weren't just trying to survive the apocalypse. They were trying to figure out how to rule whatever came after. Bud Askins, the middle manager we met in the finale, explained it pretty clearly. Vault-Tec's plan was to wait out the worst of the fallout, then emerge and recolonize the surface using the data from the experiments to build a better society. Better, in this case, meaning more controllable. They wanted to know how much suffering people could endure before they broke. They wanted to know how to engineer compliance. They wanted to know how to make sure that when they opened the vault doors and said, "We're in charge now," nobody would have the will or the knowledge to fight back. It's eugenics and corporate feudalism wrapped in a friendly retro-future aesthetic. And it's the most realistic villain plan in any video game adaptation because it's basically just capitalism with bombs. Season 2 is going to show us what happens when that plan starts to fall apart. The vaults were supposed to stay sealed for another 50 years. Vault 33's door opened early because of Moldiver's raid. Other vaults are going to start opening too, either because their experiments failed or because the residents figured out the truth and decided to leave. And when those vault dwellers reach the surface, they're going to find a wasteland that's already full of people who've been surviving without Vault-Tec's help for 2 centuries. Those people are not going to be excited about a bunch of sheltered managers showing up and trying to take over. The NCR is going to see them as collaborators, the Brotherhood is going to see them as targets, and the various Raider and Settler factions are going to see them as easy prey. Vault-Tec's plan assumed they'd be recolonizing an empty wasteland. They're going to be recolonizing a war zone, and they're not ready for it. Lucy is the perfect character to explore that collision because she's a vault dweller who's already seen both sides. She knows the vaults are built on lies, but she also knows that the people inside them are victims, not villains. Most of them had no idea what Vault-Tec was really doing. They were just trying to survive and raise their kids and believed that the world outside was too dangerous to risk. Lucy believed that too until she didn't. Season 2 is going to put her in the position of having to explain the surface to other vault dwellers who are just as naive as she used to be. And it's going to break her heart every time one of them gets killed because they trusted the wrong person or walked into the wrong building or just didn't understand that the wasteland doesn't give second chances. The ghoul is going to be her guide through that process, whether he wants to be or not. Cooper Howard has spent 200 years watching people make the same mistakes over and over. He's seen settlements rise and fall. He's seen factions promise peace and deliver tyranny. He's seen good people turn bad and bad people get worse, and he's survived it all by not caring about any of it. But Lucy makes him care, and that's dangerous for both of them. Walton Goggins has said that the relationship between Lucy and the ghoul is the emotional core of the show, and that Season 2 will explore whether they're partners, enemies, or something more complicated. The answer is all three, depending on the day. The dynamic between them works because they're both searching for family, but they're searching in opposite directions. Lucy is running toward her father, trying to save him from himself. The ghoul is running toward his daughter, trying to save what's left of the man he used to be. They're both going to fail, at least partially, because the show isn't interested in easy resolutions. Lucy is going to find her father, and he's going to disappoint her. He's going to justify what he did. He's going to explain that he destroyed Shady Sands to protect the Vault program, to protect her, and he's going to expect her to understand, and Lucy is going to have to look him in the eye and tell him that she doesn't. That's the moment she stops being a Vault dweller and becomes something else. That's the moment the show has been building towards since the first episode. The ghoul's arc is going to mirror that, but with a darker edge. If he finds Janie, and the show has strongly hinted that he will, she's not going to recognize him. How could she? He's a walking corpse with no nose and skin like old leather. He's killed hundreds of people. He's done things that would make her pre-war father vomit. And even if she somehow knows who he is, even if Vault-Tec kept records and she's been waiting for him, she's not going to be the little girl he remembers. She's either going to be a 200-year-old woman who's lived an entire life without him, or she's going to be a child who's been frozen in cryo and wakes up to find out her daddy is a monster. Either way, the reunion is going to destroy him, and the show is going to make us watch. That's the genius of Fallout storytelling. It takes the video game's core theme, war never changes, and applies it to personal relationships. The wasteland is full of people trying to reconnect with a past that doesn't exist anymore. The vaults are full of people trying to preserve a future that was always a lie. And the space between those two impulses is where the tragedy lives. Lucy wants to believe that people are fundamentally good. The ghoul knows they're not, but he keeps searching anyway. Maximus wants to be a hero, but he's starting to realize that heroes don't survive long in the wasteland. All three of them are going to have their beliefs tested in Season 2, and the show isn't going to let any of them off easy. Let's talk about the Brotherhood of Steel for a moment, because they're the faction that's most likely to escalate the conflict into open war. The Brotherhood we met in Season 1 was a small expeditionary force led by a paladin who was more interested in recovering technology than helping people. They were disciplined, brutal, and absolutely convinced of their own righteousness. That's standard Brotherhood behavior. But the Brotherhood we're going to meet in Season 2 is going to be different because they're going to be the main force, the chapter that controls most of Southern California, and they're going to have resources and numbers that the expeditionary team didn't. They're going to have airships and vertibirds and enough power armor to march on Vegas and actually win. The Brotherhood's goal in New Vegas is simple. They want Mr. House's Securitron army. They want his weapons manufacturing facilities. They want every piece of pre-war technology that's been sitting under the casinos for 2 centuries, and they're willing to kill anyone who gets in their way. In the game, the Brotherhood was a minor faction, weakened by losses and hiding in a bunker. The show seems to be positioning them as a major threat, the kind of military force that can actually challenge House's robots and the NCR remnants at the same time. That's a significant change from the game's lore, but it makes sense for the story the show is telling. The Brotherhood represents the worst impulse of the post-apocalyptic world, the idea that might makes right, and that the people with the biggest guns get to decide what happens next. Maximus is going to be the audience's window into the Brotherhood's internal politics, and based on the way Season 1 ended, those politics are about to get very complicated. He's been promoted to Knight, or at least everyone thinks he has because he took credit for recovering the cold fusion tech. That makes him valuable, but it also makes him a target. The Brotherhood doesn't trust outsiders, and Maximus is still an outsider in their eyes. He wasn't born into the Brotherhood. He was recruited from the ruins of Shady Sands, and there are plenty of knights and paladins who think that makes him weak, unreliable, or worse. They're going to test him. They're going to give him orders that force him to prove his loyalty, and those orders are going to involve hurting people he cares about. The most likely scenario is that the Brotherhood is going to order Maximus to hunt down Lucy. She's a vault dweller, which means she has access to vault tech facilities and information. She's traveling with the Ghoul, who's a walking encyclopedia of pre-war secrets. And she's connected to Hank McLean, who's now in New Vegas and probably trying to make a deal with Mr. House. The Brotherhood is going to want all of that, and they're going to send Maximus to get it, because he's the only one who knows what Lucy looks like and where she's going. He's going to have to choose between following orders and protecting her, and that choice is going to define his entire arc for the season. Aaron Moten has hinted that Maximus's loyalty to the Brotherhood is going to be tested in ways that make Season 1 look like a training exercise. That suggests betrayal, either by Maximus or against him. The most dramatically satisfying version of that story is that Maximus defects, not because he suddenly becomes a hero, but because he realizes that the Brotherhood's going to kill Lucy, and he can't let that happen. He's not going to make a big speech about it. He's not going to try to reform the Brotherhood from within. He's just going to make a choice in the moment, probably a violent choice, and then he's going to have to live with the consequences. The Brotherhood doesn't forgive traitors. They hunt them down and make examples of them. If Maximus turns on the Brotherhood, he's going to spend the rest of the series looking over his shoulder, and that's assuming he survives Season 2 at all. Now let's talk about New Vegas itself. Because the city is as much a character as any of the people walking through it. In the game, New Vegas was a fully functioning casino town, lit up and glamorous and completely disconnected from the wasteland outside its walls. Mr. House kept it clean and safe and profitable, and he used the money to fund his long-term plan to rebuild human civilization and eventually colonize space. Yes, space. House's endgame in Fallout New Vegas was to use the city's wealth to restart the space program and get humanity off Earth before the planet became completely uninhabitable. It was an insane plan, but House had 200 years to work on it, and he was making progress. The show hasn't mentioned the space program yet, but it's hard to imagine they'll ignore it because it's the perfect encapsulation of House's character. He's not trying to save the world. He's trying to escape it. The version of New Vegas we're going to see in Season 2 is probably going to be less pristine than the game version. The show's aesthetic has been very grounded, very lived in, and a sparkling, clean casino city would feel out of place. Expect the Strip to be functional but worn, with flickering neon and cracked pavement and Securitrons that look like they've been patched together from spare parts. Expect the surrounding neighborhoods to be slums full of people who work in the casinos but can't afford to live in them. And expect the whole city to be a powder keg because House's control is absolute but fragile. He rules through robots and fear, and if someone takes out his mainframe or his power supply, the whole system collapses. The NCR knows that. The Brotherhood knows that. And Vault-Tec definitely knows that because they probably helped him build it. Here's where the conspiracy gets deeper. Robco Industries, House's company, manufactured the Securitrons and the mainframe and most of the infrastructure that keeps New Vegas running. But Robco didn't work in a vacuum. They had contracts with the U.S. military, with Vault-Tec, with all the other corporations that were planning for the apocalypse. The show has already established that those corporations were coordinating, sharing research, dividing up the vaults. It's not a stretch to think that House's plan to save New Vegas was part of a larger Vault-Tec strategy. Maybe House was supposed to be the test case, the proof of concept that a single autocrat with enough technology could rebuild civilization faster than a democracy. Maybe his vault, Vault 21, which he filled with concrete in the game, was part of an experiment that went wrong. Or maybe House went rogue, took his toys, and built his own kingdom, and Vault-Tec has been trying to bring him back into the fold ever since. That would explain why Hank McClane is heading to New Vegas. He's not running away. He's going to report. He's going to tell House, or whoever's in charge now, that the Vault program is compromised, that Moldover's faction has cold fusion, that the NCR is regrouping, and that the Brotherhood is coming. He's going to ask for help, or orders, or both, and House is going to have to decide whether Hank is an asset or a liability. If House is still loyal to Vault-Tec, he'll protect Hank and use him to coordinate the next phase of the plan. If House has gone independent, he'll kill Hank and take whatever information he has. Either way, Lucy is going to walk into the Lucky 38 looking for her father and find herself in the middle of a corporate power struggle that's been going on for 2 centuries. The Ghoul is going to have his own reasons for going to New Vegas, and they're going to be personal. Barb Howard, his ex-wife, was a Vault-Tec executive. She was at the meeting where they planned the experiments. She knew the bombs were coming. And based on the way the show framed her character, she was one of the people pushing hardest for the nuclear option, because she believed it was the only way to guarantee Vault-Tec's monopoly on the future. Cooper found out about her involvement and it destroyed him, but he never found out what happened to her after the bombs fell. She's not in any of the cryopods we've seen so far. She's not listed in the Buds facility. So where is she? The most likely answer is that she's in New Vegas, either working with House or running her own operation. Vault-Tec had facilities all over the country, and Vegas was too valuable to ignore. If Barb survived, and if she's still committed to the Vault-Tec mission, she's going to be one of the main antagonists of Season 2. And if the Ghoul finds her, the confrontation is going to be brutal. He's going to want answers about Janie. He's going to want to know if Barb ever cared about their family or if they were just another experiment. And Barb, if she's still the cold pragmatist we met in the flashbacks, is going to tell him the truth, which is that she did what she had to do to ensure humanity's survival. And if that meant sacrificing her husband and daughter, then that was the cost of progress. The Ghoul is going to kill her. He's not going to hesitate, and it's not going to make him feel any better. That's the tragedy of his character. Cooper Howard has been searching for 200 years, and the answers he finds are only going to confirm what he already knows. The world ended because people like his wife decided it should. His daughter is gone, or changed, or broken. And the man he used to be, the cowboy actor who believed in honor and heroism, died the day the bombs fell. The Ghoul is what's left, and the Ghoul doesn't get a happy ending. He gets revenge, maybe, or closure, if you can call it that, but he doesn't get his family back. The show has been very clear about that. Walton Goggins has said in interviews that Cooper's story is about grief and the impossibility of moving on when the thing you're grieving is still technically alive. That's not a setup for a reunion. That's a setup for a mercy killing. Lucy is going to be the one who stops him, not because she's strong enough to fight him, but because she's going to make him see that killing Barb or Hank or whoever's responsible won't actually fix anything. It'll just add more bodies to the pile. That's the argument she's been making since episode 1, and the Wasteland has been punching her in the face for it every single time. But she's going to keep making it, because that's who she is, and eventually it's going to land. The Ghoul is going to have Barb at gunpoint, or Hank, or some other Vault-Tec executive, and Lucy is going to step between them and say that if he kills this person, he's no different than the people who ended the world. And the Ghoul is going to lower his gun, not because he agrees with her, but because he's tired. 200 years is a long time to be angry. That moment is going to be the emotional climax of Season 2, and it's going to set up the larger conflict for Season 3, because the real question isn't whether individual Vault-Tec executives deserve to die. They probably do. The real question is what happens to the system they built. The vaults are still out there. The experiments are still running. And the people inside them are still being lied to, still being used, still being shaped into whatever Vault-Tec decided they should be. Lucy, the ghoul, and Maximus are going to have to decide whether they're going to tear that system down or try to save the people trapped inside it. You can't do both. If you open all the vaults, you release a bunch of traumatized, indoctrinated survivors into a wasteland that's already struggling to survive. If you leave the vault sealed, you're complicit in the experiments. There's no good answer, and the show is going to make them choose anyway. Let's talk about some of the smaller mysteries that Season 1 set up, because they're going to pay off in Season 2, and they're easy to miss if you're not paying attention. First, there's the question of Vault 4. In the games, Vault 4 doesn't exist, which means the show invented it, and they don't invent things without a reason. Based on the numbering system and the locations we've seen, Vault 4 is probably somewhere in the Mojave, and its experiment is probably related to one of the themes the show is exploring. My guess, and this is speculation, but it's informed speculation, is that Vault 4's experiment was about leadership succession. What happens when the overseer dies and there's no clear replacement? Do people vote? Do they fight? Do they fall apart? Vault-Tec would want to know, because they were planning to rule the post-apocalyptic world, and rulers need succession plans. If that's the case, then Vault 4 is going to be a war zone when Lucy and the others find it. It's going to be full of factions, each one claiming they're the legitimate government, each one willing to kill to prove it. And Lucy is going to have to navigate that conflict without taking sides, because the moment she endorses one faction, the others are going to try to kill her. It's going to be a microcosm of the larger conflict in the wasteland, and it's going to force Lucy to confront the limits of her idealism. She can't save everyone. She can't make everyone get along. Sometimes the best she can do is get out alive and hope that the people left behind figure it out on their own. Second, there's the question of the other Vault-Tec executives in Cryo. Bud Askins was middle management, and he was in charge of waking up the executives when the time was right. But we only saw a few pods, and Vault-Tec had hundreds of employees. Where are the rest of them? The most likely answer is that they're spread out across multiple facilities, each one designed to wake up at a different stage of the recolonization plan. Bud's facility was supposed to wake up first to handle the initial phase. Other facilities are probably still sealed, waiting for a signal that's never going to come, or that already came and they missed it. Season 2 is going to show us at least one more facility, and it's going to be full of executives who've been asleep for 2 centuries and have no idea that the world they're waking up to is nothing like the world they planned for. Imagine being a Vault-Tec executive who went to sleep expecting to wake up to a clean, empty wasteland ready for recolonization, and instead, you wake up to the NCR, the Brotherhood, Mr. House, and a bunch of vault dwellers who figured out that you're the reason their families are dead. You'd panic. You'd try to reassert control. You'd activate whatever fail-safes and contingency plans Vault-Tec built into the system, and those fail-safes are probably going to be catastrophic. Maybe they're bombs. Maybe they're biological weapons. Maybe they're just robots programmed to kill anyone who isn't a Vault-Tec employee. Whatever they are, they're going to go off in Season 2, and Lucy is going to have to stop them because she's the only Vault Dweller who understands both sides of the conflict. Third, there's the question of what happened to the other vaults in the Los Angeles area. We know Vault 33, 32, and 31 were connected. We know there are at least a dozen other vaults in Southern California based on the map Vault-Tec showed in the meeting. Some of them are probably still sealed. Some of them probably failed, their experiments going wrong and killing everyone inside, and some of them probably opened years ago in their residents joining the wasteland and becoming raiders or settlers or something in between. Season 2 is going to show us at least one of those vaults, and it's going to be a cautionary tale about what happens when Vault-Tec's experiments succeed. Because the scary thing isn't the vaults that failed. It's the vaults that worked exactly as intended. Imagine a vault where the experiment was to create a perfectly obedient population, and it worked. Imagine a vault where everyone follows orders without question, where dissent has been bred out over generations, where the overseer's word is law and no one even thinks to challenge it. Now imagine that vault opening and those people walking into the wasteland with the absolute conviction that their way is the right way and everyone else needs to fall in line. That's terrifying. That's a cult with resources, an organization, and 200 years of social engineering backing it up. And that's exactly the kind of thing Vault-Tec would create because they weren't trying to save humanity. They were trying to perfect it. Lucy is going to encounter one of these successful experiments and it's going to shake her to her core because she's going to see people who are exactly like she used to be, people who believe everything their overseer tells them, people who think the vault is safe and good and the surface is dangerous and corrupt. And she's going to try to warn them. She's going to try to tell them that they're being lied to, that Vault-Tec isn't their friend, that the overseer is just another middle manager following a script written by people who saw them as lab rats. And they're not going to believe her. Or they're going to smile and nod and report her to their overseer, and the overseer is going to try to have her killed because she's a contamination risk. She's proof that vault dwellers can think for themselves, and that's the one thing a successful Vault-Tec experiment can allow. The ghoul is going to be the one who gets her out. He's seen this before. He's probably killed entire vaults full of people who were too indoctrinated to save. And he's going to tell Lucy, in his usual blunt way, that you can't help people who don't want to be helped. Some people would rather die believing a comfortable lie than live with an uncomfortable truth. It's one of the wasteland's hardest lessons, and Lucy is going to resist it as long as she can. But eventually she's going to have to accept that she can't save everyone, and that trying to save people who don't want saving is just going to get her killed. That's going to be her character arc for Season 2. Season 1 was about Lucy learning that the surface is more complicated than she thought. Season 2 is going to be about Lucy learning that people are more complicated than she thought. She's going to meet wastelanders who are kind and generous. She's going to meet vault dwellers who are cruel and selfish. She's going to meet NCR soldiers who want to rebuild and NCR soldiers who just want revenge. And she's going to have to figure out how to navigate a world where good and evil aren't as clear-cut as the Vault education films promised. The show isn't going to turn her into a cynic. It's going to turn her into a realist, and there's a difference. A cynic thinks everyone is bad. A realist knows that everyone is capable of both good and bad, and the trick is figuring out which one they're going to choose in any given moment. Maximus is going to go through a similar arc, but from the opposite direction. He started the series believing that the Brotherhood was good and the Wasteland was bad. Season 1 taught him that the Brotherhood is brutal and corrupt. Season 2 is going to teach him that the Wasteland is full of people who are just trying to survive, and that survival doesn't make you a hero or a villain. It just makes you human. He's going to meet NCR remnants who've done terrible things to stay alive. He's going to meet raiders who have families and friends and reasons for what they do. And he's going to have to reconcile the fact that the people the Brotherhood taught him to kill are just people, no better or worse than him. That's going to put him in direct conflict with his training. The Brotherhood doesn't do nuance. They don't do moral complexity. You're either with them or you're an enemy, and enemies get a bullet. Maximus is going to be ordered to execute someone, probably someone he's gotten to know, someone who's helped him or saved his life or just shared a meal with him. And he's going to have to choose between following orders and following his conscience. The show has been building to that moment since episode 1, and when it happens, it's going to be devastating. Because if he follows orders, he's complicit in murder. And if he refuses, he's a traitor, and the Brotherhood will hunt him for the rest of his life. Aaron Moten has said that Maximus's defining trait is that he wants to be a good person. But he doesn't always know what that means. Season 2 is going to force him to define it for himself without the Brotherhood telling him what to think. And the definition he comes up with is probably going to be something simple and devastating, like a good person is someone who doesn't kill people just because they're told to. That's a low bar, but in the Wasteland, it's a revolutionary statement. Most people kill because they have to, because it's them or the other guy, because resources are scarce and violence is the only language everyone speaks. Maximus is going to try to be different. He's going to try to find another way, And the wasteland is going to punish him for it over and over until he either breaks or becomes the kind of hero he always wanted to be. Now let's talk about Caesar's Legion. Because if the show is going to New Vegas, it has to address the Legion, and that's going to be complicated. In Fallout New Vegas, Caesar's Legion was one of the main factions, a slaver army modeled on ancient Rome that controlled everything east of the Colorado River. They were brutal, misogynistic, and terrifyingly effective. They crucified enemies, burned villages, and believed that the only way to bring order to the wasteland was through absolute authoritarian control. The game let you side with them, but it was very clear that they were the villain option. The show is probably not going to let you side with them. The show is probably going to use them as the external threat that forces the other factions to work together, at least temporarily. The Legion's leader, Caesar, died in one of the possible endings of Fallout New Vegas, but the show hasn't confirmed which ending is canon. If Caesar is dead, the Legion is probably in the middle of a civil war with different generals fighting for control. If Caesar is alive, the Legion is probably preparing for another assault on the Mojave. And New Vegas is the prize. Either way, the Legion is going to be a problem, and the NCR remnants are going to be the ones who know how to fight them. The Brotherhood has power armor and energy weapons, but the NCR has experience. They've been fighting the Legion for decades. They know the Legion's tactics, their weaknesses, their supply lines, and they're going to be the key to stopping the Legion from overrunning Vegas and everyone in it. Lucy is going to be horrified by the Legion. She's going to see the slaves, the crucifixions, the way they treat women as property, and she's going to want to do something about it. The ghoul is going to tell her that the Legion has been around for decades and the NCR couldn't stop them, so what makes her think she can? And Lucy is going to say that just because you can't stop all of it doesn't mean you shouldn't stop some of it. That's going to be her philosophy for the entire season. Small victories, individual lives saved, one person at a time. It's not going to be enough to change the wasteland, but it's going to be enough to change the people she saves, and that's going to have to be enough. Maximus is going to have a different reaction to the Legion. He's going to see them as the enemy the Brotherhood should be fighting, instead of hoarding technology and killing wastelanders. The Legion is everything the Brotherhood claims to stand against. They're barbaric. They reject technology. They're trying to drag humanity backward instead of forward. And yet the Brotherhood isn't doing anything about them because the Legion doesn't have any technology worth stealing. That hypocrisy is going to be the final straw for Maximus. He's going to realize that the Brotherhood doesn't actually care about protecting people or rebuilding civilization. They just care about power. And once he realizes that, he's not going to be able to go back. The Legion is also going to be a problem for Mr. House because House's entire plan depends on Vegas staying independent. He can't afford to let the Legion take the city, and he can't afford to let the NCR take it either. In the game, House's strategy was to play the factions against each other, keeping them balanced so that no one could challenge his control. The show is probably going to use the same strategy, but with higher stakes. House is going to make deals with everyone. He's going to promise the NCR that he'll help them fight the Legion if they leave Vegas alone. He's going to promise the Brotherhood access to his weapons factories if they protect the city from the NCR. And he's going to promise Vault Tech that he'll help them recolonize the wasteland if they give him the resources he needs to restart the space program. None of these promises are going to be sincere. House is going to be playing a shell game, and the moment one faction figures it out, the whole thing is going to collapse into violence. Lucy the Ghoul and Maximus are going to be caught in the middle of that collapse. They're going to be in Vegas when the shooting starts, and they're going to have to pick a side or get killed in the crossfire. The smart move would be to leave, to get out of the city and let the factions destroy each other. But none of them are going to do that because they all have reasons to stay. Lucy is going to stay because her father is in the city and she's not leaving without him. The Ghoul is going to stay because Barb is in the city, or Janie, or some other piece of his past that he can't let go of. And Maximus is going to stay because the NCR remnants are in the city. And they're the closest thing he has to a home, so they're going to stay. And they're going to fight, and the show is going to make us watch as the city tears itself apart. The battle for New Vegas is going to be the climax of Season 2, and it's going to be brutal. The NCR is going to be outgunned but determined. The Brotherhood is going to be powerful but overconfident. The Legion is going to be savage but disorganized, and House is going to be sitting in his tower, watching it all on monitors, trying to calculate which side is going to win so he can switch his support at the last second. It's going to be chaos, and the only people who are going to survive are the ones who are smart enough to see the chaos coming and ruthless enough to do what needs to be done. Lucy is not ruthless. That's her strength and her weakness. She's going to try to stop the battle before it starts. She's going to try to get the factions to talk to each other to see that they're all being manipulated by House and Vault-Tec and that the real enemy is the system, not each other. And for a moment, it's going to look like it might work. The NCR and the Brotherhood are going to agree to a temporary ceasefire. They're going to sit down at a table and start negotiating. And then someone is going to break the ceasefire, probably the Legion, possibly House, and the whole thing is going to explode. Lucy is going to be devastated. She's going to feel like she failed. And the ghoul is going to tell her that she didn't fail. She just learned that some problems can't be solved with words. Sometimes the only solution is to pick up a gun and start shooting and hope you're aiming at the right people. That's going to be the lesson of Season 2. Violence is sometimes necessary, not because it's good, but because the alternative is worse. Lucy is going to have to kill someone, not in self-defense, not in the heat of the moment, but deliberately, coldly, because that person is a threat. And talking isn't going to stop them. It's going to break something inside her, and it's going to change her relationship with the ghoul, because he's been trying to teach her that lesson since episode 1, and she's been resisting it. Once she crosses that line, she's going to understand him in a way she didn't before. She's going to understand that the wasteland doesn't make you cruel. It just makes you choose between cruelty and death, and most people choose cruelty because they want to live. The ghoul is going to see that change in her, and it's going to hurt him, because he didn't want her to become like him. He wanted her to stay good, to stay hopeful, to be proof that the wasteland doesn't have to corrupt everyone it touches. But it does. It always does. And watching Lucy lose her innocence is going to be like watching his daughter grow up without him. A reminder of everything he's lost and everything he can never get back. Walton Goggins has said that the ghoul's relationship with Lucy is paternal, even though he'd never admit it. And that Season 2 is going to explore what happens when the person you're trying to protect doesn't need your protection anymore. The answer is that you feel useless. And for someone like the ghoul, who spent 2 centuries defining himself by his ability to survive and kill, useless is the worst thing you can be. Maximus is going to go through his own transformation during the battle. He's going to be fighting alongside the NCR remnants, and he's going to see what real soldiers look like, not the Brotherhood's fanatics, but people who are fighting because they believe in something bigger than themselves. They're not fighting for technology or power or glory. They're fighting for the idea that the wasteland can be better, that people can build something that lasts, that civilization is worth the cost. And Maximus is going to realize that's what he's been looking for his entire life. Not a family, not a purpose, but a cause. Something worth dying for. And once he finds it, he's going to be willing to die for it. And that's going to terrify Lucy because she's already lost so much and she can't lose him too. The relationship between Lucy and Maximus is going to be one of the emotional anchors of Season 2, and it's going to be complicated in ways that the first season only hinted at. They're not quite friends. They're not quite lovers. They're 2 people who met in the worst possible circumstances and somehow decided to trust each other anyway. Maximus lied to Lucy about who he was. Lucy used Maximus to get what she needed. And yet, when it mattered, when they had the chance to betray each other, they didn't. That's the foundation of their relationship, and Season 2 is going to test whether that foundation is strong enough to survive what's coming. The tension is going to come from the fact that they're on opposite sides of the conflict, at least initially. Maximus is Brotherhood, even if he's starting to question what that means. Lucy is a vault dweller looking for her father, who happens to be one of the most wanted men in the wasteland. The Brotherhood is going to order Maximus to bring Lucy in, either as a prisoner or a corpse. And Maximus is going to have to decide whether he's willing to defy the only family he's ever known to protect someone he barely knows. The fact that he's going to choose Lucy is obvious. The show has been building to that choice since they met, but the way he makes that choice, And the cost of making it is going to define his character for the rest of the series. There's a scene that's almost certainly going to happen in Season 2, and it's going to wreck everyone who watches it. Maximus is going to be in his power armor, standing between Lucy and a squad of Brotherhood knights. The knights are going to order him to stand down. They're going to remind him of his oaths, his duty, everything the Brotherhood has done for him. And Maximus is going to take off his helmet, look them in the eye, and say no. Not because he's brave, but because he's finally figured out what kind of man he wants to be. The knights are going to open fire, Maximus is going to fight back, and Lucy is going to watch the only person in the wasteland who's ever protected her without asking for anything in return risk his life for her one more time. She's not going to let him die. That's not who she is. She's going to pick up a gun, probably the ghoul's gun, and she's going to shoot one of the knights. Not to kill, probably, but to distract. To give Maximus an opening, and in that moment she's going to become complicit in violence in a way she's never been before. She's not defending herself. She's not stopping an immediate threat. She's choosing a side in a war, and that choice is going to have consequences. The Brotherhood is going to mark her as an enemy. The NCR is going to see her as an ally, and her father, wherever he is going to hear about it and realize that his daughter isn't coming to save him. She's coming to stop him. Hank McClane is the other major piece of the Season 2 puzzle, and his arc is going to be a slow-motion tragedy. He's not a villain in his own mind. He's a man who made hard choices to protect his family and his mission, and he genuinely believes he did the right thing. He destroyed Shady Sands because the NCR was a threat to Vault-Tec's plan, and Vault-Tec's plan was humanity's best chance for survival. He lied to his children because the truth would have broken them, and he needed them to grow up strong and capable and ready to lead when the time came. He's a true believer, and true believers are the most dangerous people in the wasteland because they can justify anything. Kyle MacLachlan, who plays Hank, has said in interviews that Hank sees himself as a tragic hero, someone who's sacrificed his own happiness for the greater good. That's a very specific character note, and it tells us a lot about where his arc is going. Hank is going to double down. He's not going to apologize. He's not going to admit he was wrong. He's going to try to convince Lucy that everything he did was necessary, and that if she really understood the stakes, she'd make the same choices. And Lucy is going to have to look at her father, the man who taught her right from wrong, and tell him that he's wrong, that the ends don't justify the means, that you can't build a better world on top of mass graves, that she loves him, but she can't follow him anymore. Then, that confrontation is going to be the emotional climax of the season, and it's going to happen in Mr. House's tower. Hank is going to be there, either as House's guest or his prisoner, depending on how their negotiations went. Lucy is going to fight her way through Securitrons and Vault-Tec security and whatever other obstacles the show puts in her path, and she's going to find her father in a room full of monitors and computers still trying to manage the apocalypse like it's a quarterly earnings report. And she's going to ask him the one question he can't answer. Was it worth it? Was destroying Shady Sands worth it? Was lying to your children worth it? Was ending the world worth it? Hank is going to say yes. He has to. If he says no, then everything he's done, everything he's sacrificed, was for nothing. And he can't live with that. So he's going to say yes, and he's going to mean it, and Lucy is going to realize that her father is gone. Not dead, but gone. The man who raised her, who taught her the golden rule, who tucked her in at night and told her stories about the surface, that man doesn't exist anymore. Maybe he never did. Maybe he was always this person and she just didn't see it. Either way, she can't save him. She can only stop him. The question is whether she'll be able to pull the trigger. The ghoul will tell her to do it. Maximus will tell her it's her choice. And Lucy is going to stand there with a gun in her hand, pointed at her father, and she's going to hesitate. Because killing him won't bring back Shady Sands. It won't undo the lies. It won't fix anything. But letting him live means he's going to keep working for Vault-Tec, keep running experiments, keep sacrificing people for the greater good. There's no right answer, and the show's going to make her choose anyway. In my guess, and this is just speculation, is that Lucy doesn't kill him. She lowers the gun. She tells him that she's not going to become like him, that she's not going to let the wasteland turn her into someone who can kill her own father, no matter what he's done. And then someone else kills him. Maybe it's an NCR remnant who lost family in Shady Sands. Maybe it's the ghoul who's tired of watching Lucy torture herself. Maybe it's Maximus, who sees that Lucy can't do it and decides to carry that weight for her. Whoever it is, Hank dies and Lucy doesn't have to be the one who pulled the trigger. But she's still complicit because she had the chance to stop it and she didn't. That's going to haunt her for the rest of the series. Not the fact that her father is dead, but the fact that she let someone else do what she couldn't. It's going to change her relationship with whoever killed him. If it's the ghoul, she's going to resent him for taking the choice away from her. If it's Maximus, she's going to feel guilty that he had to carry that burden. Either way, it's going to create a rift that the show's going to have to address in season 3. Because the thing about trauma is that it doesn't go away just because you survive it. It stays with you and it changes you. And the people around you have to decide whether they can live with the person you've become. Now let's talk about Barb Howard, because she's the other parent figure in this story, and her arc is going to parallel Hank's in interesting ways. Barb was a Vault-Tec executive who helped plan the apocalypse. She was smart, ambitious, and absolutely ruthless. She believed that the only way to save humanity was to destroy it first, to wipe the slate clean and rebuild from scratch using Vault-Tec's research. She wasn't evil. She was pragmatic, and pragmatism, when taken to its logical extreme, is indistinguishable from evil. The show hasn't told us what happened to Barb after the bombs fell, but the most dramatically satisfying answer is that she's still alive, still working for Vault-Tec, still committed to the mission. She's probably in New Vegas, either working with Mr. House or running her own operation. And when the ghoul finds her, it's going to be the reunion from hell, because Barb is going to look at her ex-husband, this radioactive corpse who's spent 2 centuries killing his way across the wasteland, and she's going to see him as a failure. He was supposed to be in a vault. He was supposed to be safe. The fact that he's a ghoul means something went wrong, and Barb doesn't tolerate things going wrong. The ghoul is going to ask her about Janie. Barb is going to tell him the truth, whatever that is, and it's going to destroy him. Maybe Janie is dead. Maybe she's alive but doesn't remember him. Maybe she's been turned into another Vault-Tec experiment, raised in a vault with no knowledge of her real parents, shaped into whatever Vault-Tec needed her to be. Any of those answers would be devastating, and the show is probably going to pick the one that hurts the most. My guess is that Janie is alive. She's been awake for decades, and she's a Vault-Tec executive just like her mother. She spent her entire adult life working for the organization that destroyed the world, and she believes in the mission just as much as Barb does. That would be the ultimate tragedy for Cooper Howard. He spent 2 centuries searching for his daughter, and when he finally finds her, she's become everything he hates. She's not a victim. She's a collaborator. And she's going to look at him, this monster wearing her father's face, and she's not going to recognize him. She's going to see him as a threat, a contamination risk, something that needs to be eliminated. And the ghoul is going to have to choose between killing his own daughter or letting her continue Vault-Tec's work. It's the same choice Lucy has to make with Hank, but worse, because at least Hank still loves Lucy. Janie doesn't love the ghoul. She doesn't even know who he is. Walton Goggins has said that the ghoul's story is about the cost of survival, and that Season 2 is going to ask whether survival is worth it if you lose everything that made you human. That's not a question with a happy answer. The ghoul has survived for 2 centuries, but he's lost his family, his identity, his humanity. He's a walking corpse, held together by radiation and spite. And when he finally gets the answers he's been searching for, those answers are going to confirm that survival wasn't worth it. He should have died with the rest of the world. At least then he would have died as Cooper Howard, not as the ghoul. But he's not going to die. Not yet, because Lucy needs him, and somewhere deep down, under all the radiation and scar tissue and 200 years of trauma, Cooper Howard is still in there. And that part of him, the part that used to be a father, is going to look at Lucy and see a second chance. He couldn't save Janie. Maybe he can save Lucy. Not from the wasteland, because nobody can save anyone from the wasteland, but from becoming like him, from losing herself the way he lost himself. That's going to be his arc for the rest of the series, not redemption, because you can't redeem 2 centuries of murder. But maybe something like atonement. Maybe something like peace. Lucy is going to be the one who gives him that peace, not by forgiving him, but by proving that the wasteland doesn't have to corrupt everyone. She's going to stay good, or at least good enough, and that's going to be enough for the ghoul. He's going to see her make hard choices and still hold on to her principles. He's going to see her kill when she has to and still feel bad about it. And he's going to realize that maybe humanity isn't doomed after all. Maybe there's still hope, not for him, but for people like Lucy. And that's going to be enough. Maximus is going to have his own moment of reckoning with the Brotherhood, and it's going to be even more brutal than his defection. Because the Brotherhood doesn't just kill traitors. They make examples of them. They hunt down everyone the traitor ever cared about, and they kill them too, slowly, publicly, to make sure that no one else gets the same idea. Maximus knows this. He's seen it happen, and when he chooses Lucy over the Brotherhood, he's not just risking his own life. He's risking hers, and the ghouls, and everyone else who's ever helped him. The Brotherhood is going to come after all of them, and they're not going to stop until everyone is dead or Maximus is back in chains. That's going to force the three of them, Lucy the Ghoul and Maximus, to actually work together as a team instead of just three people moving in the same direction. They're going to have to trust each other. They're going to have to cover each other's weaknesses, and they're going to have to figure out how to fight an enemy that has better weapons, better armor, and better training than any of them. The only advantage they have is that they're not bound by the Brotherhood's rules. They can be unpredictable. They can be creative. They can do things that the Brotherhood would never expect, because the Brotherhood thinks in terms of doctrine and tactics and established procedure. Lucy, the Ghoul, and Maximus think in terms of survival, and survival doesn't follow a manual. The show is going to give us at least one major action sequence where the three of them take on a Brotherhood patrol and win. Not because they're stronger, but because they're smarter. Lucy is going to use her Vault-Tec knowledge to hack a suit of power armor and turn it against its wearer. The Ghoul is going to use his 2 centuries of wasteland experience to set traps and ambushes that the Brotherhood walks right into. And Maximus is going to use his Brotherhood training against them because he knows how they think and how they fight and exactly where their blind spots are. It's going to be brutal and desperate and barely successful. And when it's over, all three of them are going to be wounded and exhausted and wondering how many more times they can do this before their luck runs out. The answer is not many. The Brotherhood is going to escalate. They're going to send more patrols, better knights, maybe even a paladin or an elder. And eventually Lucy, the Ghoul, and Maximus are going to realize that they can't win by running and hiding. They're going to have to take the fight to the Brotherhood. They're going to have to hit the Brotherhood where it hurts, and the place where it hurts most is their base of operations. In the game, the Brotherhood's main base in the Mojave was Hidden Valley, an underground bunker full of knights and paladins and enough firepower to level a city. The show is probably going to use the same location, and it's probably going to turn the assault on Hidden Valley into the action climax of Season 2. Lucy is not going to want to do it. She's going to argue that attacking the Brotherhood makes them no better than the Brotherhood. The Ghoul is going to tell her that the Brotherhood started this fight, and they're going to finish it one way or another so she can either help or get out of the way. And Maximus is going to be caught in the middle because Hidden Valley is full of people he knows, people he trained with, people who saved his life when he was a kid. Some of them are fanatics. Some of them are just soldiers following orders. And Maximus is going to have to kill them anyway because there's no other choice. The assault on Hidden Valley is going to be a disaster. Not a complete disaster, but close. They're going to get inside, probably with help from the NCR remnants or some other faction that has a grudge against the Brotherhood. They're going to fight their way through the bunker, taking casualties, losing people they care about. And they're going to reach the command center where the Elder or the head paladin is coordinating the Brotherhood's operations. And that's where the plan is going to fall apart because the Brotherhood is going to have a contingency that none of them expected. My guess, based on the way the show has been setting things up, is that the Brotherhood has a self-destruct system. If the bunker is ever compromised, if there's ever a risk that their technology will fall into enemy hands, they blow the whole thing up and everyone inside it. It's the kind of scorched earth tactic that the Brotherhood would absolutely use because they'd rather destroy their own technology than let Wastelanders have it. And when Lucy, the Ghoul, and Maximus realize that the bunker is about to explode, they're going to have maybe 2 minutes to get out, and not everyone is going to make it. Someone is going to die in that bunker. Not one of the main three probably, but someone close to them, an NCR soldier who helped them get inside, a Brotherhood knight who defected with Maximus, someone whose death is going to hurt and whose death is going to matter. And the survivors are going to have to live with the fact that they got that person killed, that their plan wasn't good enough, that they're not heroes, they're just people trying to survive in a world that punishes mistakes with death. That's going to be the low point of Season 2. The moment where it looks like everything they fought for is falling apart. The Brotherhood is still out there, weakened, but not destroyed. The NCR remnants are scattered and demoralized. Mr. House is still in control of New Vegas, and Vault-Tec is still running experiments, still planning for the long game, still convinced that they're going to inherit the wasteland. Lucy is going to feel like she's failed. Maximus is going to feel like he's lost everything. And the Ghoul is going to feel like he's been here before, watching everything burn, watching people die, and knowing that it's never going to stop. But then something is going to shift. Maybe it's a piece of information they find in the Brotherhood bunker. Maybe it's a message from one of the other vaults. Maybe it's just Lucy refusing to give up, refusing to accept that the wasteland has to be this way. Whatever it is, it's going to give them a new direction, a new plan, a new reason to keep fighting. And that plan is going to involve New Vegas and Mr. House and the cold fusion reactor and all the pieces that the show has been carefully putting on the board since Episode 1. The final act of Season 2 is going to be a race. The Brotherhood is regrouping and preparing for another assault. The Legion is moving west, getting ready to attack the Mojave. The NCR remnants are trying to organize a defense with limited resources and no central leadership. And in the middle of all of it, Lucy, the Ghoul, and Maximus are going to be trying to reach the cold fusion reactor before anyone else does, because whoever controls that reactor controls the future of the wasteland. It's clean energy. It's unlimited power. It's the one thing that could actually rebuild civilization instead of just prolonging the violence. But getting to the reactor means going through New Vegas, and going through New Vegas means dealing with Mr. House. House is going to know they're coming. He's going to have watched them on his monitors, tracked their movements, calculated their intentions, and he's going to make them an offer. He'll give them access to the reactor. He'll even help them defend it from the Brotherhood and the Legion, but only if they agree to work for him. Only if they accept that he's in charge, that his vision for the future is the only one that matters, that humanity's best chance for survival is to shut up and follow orders. Lucy is going to want to refuse. The Ghoul is going to want to shoot House and take what they need, and Maximus is going to be the one who points out that they don't have a choice. They're outnumbered, outgunned, and out of time. If they don't accept House's offer, the Brotherhood or the Legion is going to take the reactor, and then it's game over for everyone. So they're going to accept, reluctantly, and they're going to walk into House's tower knowing that they're making a deal with someone who's just as bad as Vault-Tec, just with better PR. House is going to be played by someone with serious gravitas, someone who can sell the idea that this 200-year-old brain in a jar is still the smartest person in the room. The casting hasn't been announced, but the showrunners have hinted that House is going to be a major character in Season 2, and that his relationship with Vault-Tec is going to be one of the big reveals. My guess is that House was part of Vault-Tec's inner circle, that he knew the bombs were coming because he helped plan the timing, and that his whole story about heroically saving Vegas is a cover for the fact that he was protecting his investment. When Lucy finds out, and she will find out because the show isn't going to let her stay naive, she's going to feel betrayed. Again, she's going to realize that everyone with power in the wasteland got that power by doing something unforgivable, and that there are no good options, only less bad ones. And she's going to have to decide whether she can live with that, whether she can work with people like House and Hank and all the other monsters in suits, if it means saving lives. Or whether she's going to draw a line and say that some compromises aren't worth making, even if it means more people die. The Ghoul is going to tell her that there are no lines in the wasteland. There's only survival. You do what you have to do and you live with it, or you don't, and you die. That's been his philosophy for 2 centuries, and it's kept him alive, but it's also turned him into something that barely qualifies as human. Lucy is going to look at him and realize that she doesn't want to become that. She doesn't want to survive if survival means losing everything that makes her who she is. And the ghoul is going to see that realization in her eyes, and it's going to hurt him because he knows she's right. He knows that survival isn't enough, but it's all he has left. Maximus is going to be the one who finds the middle path. He's going to argue that they can work with House without becoming like House. They can use his resources, his robots, his technology, and then when the immediate threat is over, they can figure out how to take him down. It's not a perfect plan. It's not even a good plan. But it's the only plan they have, and sometimes the only plan you have is the one you have to follow. Lucy is going to agree, reluctantly. The ghoul is going to agree because he's been making compromises for 2 centuries, and one more isn't going to make a difference. And together, the three of them are going to walk into Mr. House's office and shake hands with the devil. House is going to be charming. He's going to be reasonable. He's going to explain his vision for the future in a way that almost makes sense. He wants to rebuild civilization. He wants to restart industry, agriculture, education. He wants to get humanity back to the stars because Earth is dying and the only way to save the species is to leave the planet behind. It's an ambitious plan. It's maybe even a good plan. The problem is that House's plan doesn't include democracy or freedom or any of the things that the NCR fought for. House's plan is autocracy with extra steps, and Lucy is going to see that immediately, but she's not going to say anything. Not yet. Because they need House's help, and antagonizing him now would be suicide, so she's going to smile and nod and agree to his terms, and she's going to hate herself for it, and the ghoul is going to watch her do it. And he's going to see the exact moment when Lucy McLean stops being the idealistic vault dweller who believed in the golden rule and becomes someone who can lie to a tyrant's face and mean it. It's going to be a small moment, barely noticeable, but it's going to change everything. House is going to give them access to his Securitron army, or at least a portion of it. He's going to give them intelligence on the Brotherhood's movements and the Legion's supply lines, and he's going to give them one other thing, something they didn't ask for, but that he's offering anyway: information about Vault-Tech's endgame, because House knows what Vault-Tech is planning, and he knows that if they succeed, his vision for the future becomes irrelevant. Vault-Tech isn't trying to rebuild civilization. They're trying to replace it with something they can control completely, and House can't allow that. So he's going to make Lucy, the ghoul, and Maximus an offer. Help him stop Vault-Tech, and he'll help them stop the Brotherhood and the Legion. It's an alliance of convenience, and everyone knows it, but convenience is all they need right now. The information House provides is going to be devastating. He's going to show them documents, recordings, evidence that Vault-Tech didn't just plan for the apocalypse, they caused it. They had agents in the U.S. government and the Chinese government, and they manipulated both sides into launching their nukes. It wasn't an accident. It wasn't inevitable. It was a product launch. Exactly like Barb Howard said, Vault-Tech needed the world to end so they could sell their solution, and they made sure it ended right on schedule. The ghoul is going to see footage of his ex-wife in a Vault-Tech boardroom, giving the final approval for the operation. Lucy is going to see her father's name on a list of overseers who were briefed on the plan before the bombs fell. And Maximus is going to see a document that proves Vault-Tech knew about Shady Sands, knew it was thriving, and decided it had to be destroyed because a successful surface civilization was bad for the Vault business. That's the moment when the mission changes. It's not about survival anymore. It's not about protecting the reactor or stopping the Brotherhood or even saving individual lives. It's about justice. It's about making sure that the people who ended the world, who killed billions of people and condemned the survivors to centuries of suffering, don't get to walk away. Don't get to wake up from their cryopods and take over like nothing happened. Lucy is going to look at that evidence and she's going to make a decision. She's going to stop trying to save her father. She's going to start trying to stop him. The ghoul is going to make the same decision about Barb if he hasn't already. And Maximus is going to make the same decision about the Brotherhood, because he's going to realize that the Brotherhood isn't just hoarding technology. They're protecting Vault-Tech. They're working with the vaults, trading technology for information, helping the overseers maintain control over their populations. The Brotherhood and Vault-Tec are two sides of the same coin, and if you want to stop one, you have to stop both. That's going to be the setup for Season 3, but Season 2 is going to end with the first major victory. Lucy, the Ghoul, and Maximus are going to lead an assault on a Vault-Tec facility, probably the one under New Vegas, and they're going to destroy it. Not just raid it, not just steal information, but actually destroy it. Blow up the cryopods, delete the databases, make sure that the executives sleeping inside never wake up. It's going to be brutal. It's going to be morally complicated because some of those executives are just middle managers who were following orders. Some of them probably didn't even know the full extent of what Vault-Tec was doing, but Lucy is going to make the call anyway. Because if they don't stop Vault-Tec now, Vault-Tec is going to keep running experiments, keep manipulating people, keep treating the wasteland like a laboratory. And she can't allow that. The Ghoul is going to be the one who actually pushes the button or pulls the trigger or whatever the mechanism is. Lucy is going to give the order, but she's not going to be able to do it herself, not yet. She's not that person yet. But the Ghoul is, and he's going to do it without hesitation because he's been waiting 2 centuries for the chance to hurt the people who destroyed his life. And when the facility explodes, when the cryopods shatter and the executives inside die without ever waking up, the Ghoul is going to feel something he hasn't felt in a long time. Not satisfaction, exactly. Not peace. But something close to closure. He can't bring back the world that was lost. He can't save his daughter, but he can make sure that the people responsible pay for what they did. And that's going to have to be enough. Maximus is going to be the one who has doubts. He's going to look at the burning facility and wonder if they just committed mass murder. He's going to wonder if there was another way, if they could have captured the executives and put them on trial. If they could have done this without becoming killers themselves. And Lucy is going to tell him that there wasn't another way, that the wasteland doesn't have courts or juries or any of the infrastructure you need for justice, that sometimes the only justice you can get is the justice you make yourself. It's not a satisfying answer, it's not even a good answer, but it's the truth, and Maximus is going to have to accept it. The season is going to end with the 3 of them standing in the ruins of the Vault-Tec facility, watching it burn. The Brotherhood is still out there. The Legion is still coming. The NCR is still scattered. And Mr. House is still in his tower, watching everything on his monitors and recalculating his plans. But, for the first time since the bombs fell, Vault-Tec has actually lost something. They've lost a facility, they've lost personnel, and most importantly, they've lost the illusion of invincibility. People are fighting back. And that's going to change everything. Lucy is going to look at the Ghoul and Maximus, and she's going to say something simple, something like, "We're not done." And they're going to nod because they know she's right. This was one facility. Vault-Tec has dozens more. This was one victory. The war is just beginning, but for the first time, it feels like a war they might actually be able to win. Not because they're stronger or smarter or better equipped than their enemies, but because they're willing to do what needs to be done, and they're willing to live with the consequences. The final shot of the season is going to be a wide view of New Vegas, the lights of the Strip glowing in the darkness, and in the distance, smoke rising from the destroyed Vault-Tec facility. It's a beautiful image and a terrible one, because it represents both hope and destruction, progress and violence, everything the wasteland is and everything it could be. And then the camera is going to pull back further and further until we see the whole Mojave wasteland spread out below, and we're going to realize just how small this victory was in the grand scheme of things. The wasteland is huge. The problems are enormous, and 3 people, no matter how determined, can only do so much. But they're going to try anyway, because that's what the show's about, not saving the world because the world is already gone, but saving the people in it, one life at a time, one choice at a time, one small victory at a time. And maybe, if they're lucky and smart and ruthless enough, those small victories will add up to something bigger, something like hope something like a future. Now let's talk about some of the supporting characters who are going to become more important in Season 2, because the show has been very careful to plant seeds for future storylines. Norman McLean, Lucy's brother, is still in Vault 33, and he's the one who discovered the truth about Vault 31 and the Buds Buds program. He knows that the Overseers have been Vault-Tec plants for generations. He knows that his father was one of them, and he's stuck in a vault full of people who don't know any of this, people who still believe the lie. Norman is going to have to decide whether to tell them the truth and risk causing a panic, or keep the secret and become complicit in the same system that destroyed his family. Moises Arias, who plays Norman, has said in interviews that Norman's arc in Season 2 is about the cost of knowledge, and what you do when knowing the truth makes you responsible for it. That's a heavy theme, and it suggests that Norman is going to try to reform Vault 33 from within. He's going to try to educate people, to show them the evidence, to convince them that they need to leave the vault or at least stop following Vault-Tec's programming. And some people are going to listen, but most people aren't, because the truth is scary and the lie is comfortable, and most people would rather be comfortable than free. Norman is probably going to lead a splinter group, a faction of vault dwellers who know the truth and want to do something about it, and that faction is going to come into conflict with the loyalists, the people who still believe in the Overseer and the vault and the mission. It's going to turn into a civil war, a quiet one at first, fought with votes and arguments and social pressure. But eventually it's going to turn violent, because that's what happens when you have two groups of people who both think they're right, and neither one is willing to compromise. And Norman is going to have to lead his people through that violence, even though he's not a fighter, even though he's not a leader, even though all he wanted was to live a quiet life and maybe figure out what happened to his mom. Betty Pearson, the new Overseer of Vault 33, is going to be Norman's primary antagonist. She's a true believer, someone who's been waiting her whole life to be in charge, and she's not going to let some kid with a conspiracy theory undermine her authority. She's going to crack down on dissent. She's going to restrict access to information. She's going to do everything she can to maintain order, because order is what Vault-Tec trained her to value above everything else. And if maintaining order means exiling or executing the people who are causing problems, then that's what she's going to do. Leslie Uggams has hinted that Betty is more complicated than she seems, that she genuinely believes she's protecting the vault, and that her arc is going to explore the difference between authoritarianism and leadership. That's a fine line, and Betty is going to cross it probably multiple times. She's going to make decisions that are technically correct according to Vault-Tec protocol, but morally indefensible. And Norman is going to have to decide whether to oppose her openly, which would make him a traitor, or work against her quietly, which would make him a saboteur. Either way, he's going to be putting himself and everyone who trusts him in danger. The Vault storyline is going to run parallel to the Surface storyline, and the two are going to intersect at key moments. Lucy is going to try to contact Norman, to warn him about what she's learned, to tell him to get out of the vault before it's too late. But communication between the Surface and the vaults is difficult, and Vault-Tec monitors everything. So Lucy's messages are going to be intercepted or garbled, or they're going to arrive too late to make a difference, and Norman is going to be making decisions based on incomplete information, which is going to lead to mistakes, and those mistakes are going to cost lives. There's going to be at least one major tragedy in Vault 33 in Season 2. A purge, or a riot, or a systems failure that kills a significant portion of the population. And Norman is going to blame himself, because he's the one who started asking questions. He's the one who destabilized the Vault's social order. But the show is going to make it clear that the real blame lies with Vault-Tec, with the system that was designed to fail, with the Overseers who prioritize control over safety. Norman didn't cause the tragedy. He just exposed the cracks that were always there. By the end of Season 2, Norman is going to lead an exodus. He's going to convince a group of Vault dwellers, maybe a dozen, maybe more, to leave Vault 33 and head to the Surface. It's going to be terrifying for them, because everything they've been taught says the Surface is deadly, that radiation will kill them in minutes, that there's nothing out there but monsters and raiders. And some of that is true. The Surface is dangerous, but it's also full of people who are surviving, who are building communities, who are proving every day that life after the apocalypse is possible. Norman is going to lead his people into that world, and they're going to have to learn how to survive it. And some of them aren't going to make it. That's going to set up a reunion between Lucy and Norman in either late Season 2 or early Season 3. Lucy is going to see her brother again, and he's going to be different, harder, more cynical. He's going to have seen people die, he's going to have made impossible choices, and Lucy is going to recognize that look in his eyes because she sees it in the mirror every day. They're both vault dwellers who learned the truth and paid the price for it, and they're going to have to figure out how to be siblings again when they're both completely different people than they were when they said goodbye. Another character who's going to become more important is Thaddeus, the Brotherhood squire who traveled with Maximus in Season 1. Thaddeus ended the season as a ghoul, or at least in the early stages of ghoulification, after he was exposed to radiation and took an experimental drug that saved his life but changed him. He's going to be caught between two worlds now. He's not human anymore, but he's not fully a ghoul either. The Brotherhood is going to reject him because they see ghouls as abominations. The Wasteland is going to be suspicious of him because he's still wearing Brotherhood gear. And he's going to be terrified of what he's becoming because he's seen what ghouls turn into when they go feral. Johnny Pemberton, who plays Thaddeus, has said that his character's arc is about identity and transformation, and that Season 2 is going to explore what it means to lose your humanity and whether you can get it back. That's a question the ghoul has been living with for 2 centuries, and Thaddeus is going to be forced to confront it much faster. He's going to seek out the ghoul, probably, because the ghoul is the only person he knows who survived ghoulification and stayed sane. And the ghoul is going to tell him the truth, which is that you don't get your humanity back. You just learn to live without it. You find new reasons to keep going, new things to care about, and you accept that the person you used to be is dead. Thaddeus is not going to accept that answer. He's going to look for a cure, for some way to reverse the process. And that search is going to lead him to some very dark places because the Wasteland is full of people who promise miracle cures and deliver nothing but exploitation. He's going to be scammed, betrayed, maybe even captured and experimented on. And eventually he's going to realize that there is no cure, that this is what he is now. And he's going to have to decide whether he can live with that or whether he'd rather die as a human than survive as a ghoul. The show is probably going to let him live because his story is more interesting if he survives and has to figure out what kind of ghoul he's going to be. Is he going to be like the ghoul, violent and ruthless and barely holding on to his sanity? Or is he going to find another way, a way to be a ghoul without losing his compassion? That's a question the Fallout games have never really explored because most ghouls in the games are either tragic victims or mindless monsters. Thaddeus could be something different. He could be proof that ghoulification doesn't have to be a death sentence, that you can lose your humanity and still be a person worth knowing. There's also going to be more development of the various raider and settler factions that populate the Wasteland. Season 1 showed us glimpses of these groups, the organ harvesters, the scavengers, the people just trying to survive in the ruins. Season 2 is going to dig deeper into their cultures and their conflicts. We're going to meet raider clans with their own codes of honor, settler communities that are trying to build something that lasts, and traders who move between the factions selling supplies and information. These aren't going to be one-dimensional villains or victims. They're going to be people with their own goals and their own reasons for doing what they do. One faction that's almost certainly going to appear is the Followers of the Apocalypse, a humanitarian organization from the games that provides medical care and education to Wastelanders. The Followers are one of the few genuinely good factions in the Fallout universe, and they're going to provide a counterpoint to all the violence and cynicism. They're going to show Lucy that there are people in the Wasteland who are trying to help, who are trying to make things better, who haven't given up on the idea that humanity is worth saving. And Lucy is going to be drawn to them because they represent what she wishes the vaults had been. They're not perfect. They're underfunded and understaffed and constantly struggling, but they're trying, and that's going to mean everything to Lucy. The Followers are also going to be a source of information about Vault-Tec's experiments because they've been studying the vaults for decades, trying to understand what Vault-Tec was doing and why. They're going to have records, testimonies from vault dwellers who escaped, medical data on the effects of various experiments, and they're going to share that information with Lucy because they believe that knowledge should be free and that people have a right to know the truth about their history. That information is going to be crucial for the larger mission of taking down Vault-Tec, because you can't fight an enemy you don't understand. The followers are also going to be a target. Vault-Tec is going to see them as a threat because they're educating people, teaching them to think critically, giving them the tools to question authority. And Vault-Tec can't allow that. So there's going to be an attack on a followers' outpost, probably orchestrated by Vault-Tec Security or one of their proxy factions. And Lucy is going to be there when it happens. And she's going to have to defend people who can't defend themselves, people who've dedicated their lives to helping others. It's going to be a turning point for her, the moment when she stops running from Vault-Tec and starts actively fighting them. The attack is going to be brutal. The followers don't have weapons. They don't have armor. They have medical supplies and books and good intentions, and none of that is going to stop bullets. Lucy is going to watch people die, people who were just trying to help, and she's going to realize that this is what Vault-Tec does. They don't just run experiments, they eliminate anyone who threatens their control. And if Lucy wants to stop them, she's going to have to be willing to do the same thing. She's going to have to be willing to kill Vault-Tec operatives, not in self-defense, but preemptively, before they can hurt anyone else. It's a line she's been avoiding crossing, but after the attack on the followers, she's not going to have a choice. The ghoul is going to be the one who teaches her how to do it, how to set up an ambush, how to identify Vault-Tec agents, how to kill quickly and efficiently and without hesitation. He's not going to enjoy teaching her these things because every lesson is a reminder that he's corrupting her, turning her into something like him. But he's going to do it anyway because the alternative is watching her die, and he's not going to let that happen, not after 2 centuries of watching everyone he cares about die. Lucy is going to be his last chance at redemption, or at least at meaning, and he's going to protect her, even if it means destroying the parts of her that make her worth protecting. Maximus is going to struggle with this transformation in Lucy. He fell for the idealistic vault dweller who believed in the golden rule and wanted to help people. He's not sure how he feels about the hardened survivor who's learning to kill without remorse. And Lucy is going to see that doubt in his eyes, and it's going to hurt her, because she's changing for him as much as for herself. She's becoming someone who can survive in his world, someone who can fight beside him. And he's pulling away because he liked who she used to be better. That tension is going to create a rift between them, and it's going to take most of Season 2 to resolve. The resolution is probably going to come during the battle for New Vegas, when Maximus is in trouble, and Lucy saves him by doing something ruthless, something the old Lucy would never have done. Maybe she executes a prisoner who was about to escape and warn the enemy. Maybe she sacrifices a group of civilians to save Maximus and the mission. Whatever it is, it's going to be morally indefensible, and Maximus is going to see her do it. And he's going to realize that she's changed because the wasteland demanded it, not because she wanted to. Not because the ghoul corrupted her, but because this is what survival looks like, and if he can't accept that, then he doesn't really understand the world he's been living in his entire life. That realization is going to change Maximus's view of the Brotherhood and of himself. He's been judging Lucy for becoming more like the wasteland, but he's been part of the wasteland his whole life, and he's done terrible things in the name of survival. He's killed people. He's followed orders that got innocents hurt. He's been complicit in the Brotherhood's atrocities, and he's been telling himself that it was necessary, that he didn't have a choice, that he was just trying to survive. Lucy is doing the same thing now, and he's judging her for it, which makes him a hypocrite. Once he realizes that, he's going to stop pulling away. He's going to accept her for who she's become because he doesn't have the right to judge her when he's done worse. That acceptance is going to be the foundation of their relationship going forward. They're not going to be the idealistic vault dweller and the noble squire anymore. They're going to be 2 survivors who've both done things they're not proud of, who've both made compromises they can't take back, and who've decided that they'd rather face the wasteland together than alone. It's not a fairy tale romance. It's not even a particularly healthy relationship. But it's real. And in the wasteland, real is the best you can hope for. The cold fusion reactor is going to become the central MacGuffin of the season's final act, and every faction is going to want it for different reasons. The Brotherhood wants it because unlimited clean energy means they can power their weapons and armor indefinitely, which makes them unstoppable. The NCR wants it because clean energy means they can rebuild infrastructure, power settlements, grow crops under artificial light, and actually create the civilization they've been fighting for. The Legion wants it because denying it to their enemies is a strategic victory, and because Caesar's philosophy is that humanity needs to suffer to become strong, and unlimited energy would make life too easy. And Mr. House wants it because it's the key to his long-term plan, the thing that makes interplanetary colonization actually feasible. Vault-Tec wants it for a different reason. They want it because clean, unlimited energy makes vaults obsolete. If people on the surface can have all the power they need, they don't need to live underground. They don't need Vault-Tec's protection. They don't need the experiments or the overseers or any of the infrastructure that Vault-Tec has spent 2 centuries building. The reactor represents an existential threat to Vault-Tec's entire business model, which is why they're going to do everything in their power to destroy it. Not capture it, not control it, destroy it, because Vault-Tec would rather keep humanity dependent and suffering than allow them to be free and thriving. That's going to be the moral clarity that Lucy needs. She's been struggling with the question of whether violence is ever justified, whether killing is ever the right choice, and when she realizes that Vault-Tec is willing to destroy humanity's best chance at a real future just to maintain their own power, she's going to have her answer. Violence is justified when the alternative is letting evil win. Killing is the right choice when the person you're killing is actively trying to doom millions of people to continued suffering. It's not a comfortable answer, it's not an easy answer, but it's the answer the Wasteland has been trying to teach her since episode 1, and she's finally going to accept it. The final confrontation is going to take place at the Griffith Observatory, where Moldover activated the reactor in Season 1. Vault-Tec is going to send a strike team to destroy it, the Brotherhood is going to send a force to capture it, the Legion is going to send raiders to burn it down, and the NCR remnants are going to be the only faction actually trying to protect it because they're the only ones who understand that the reactor isn't a weapon or a tool, it's a gift. It's the thing that could actually end the cycle of violence and scarcity that's defined the Wasteland for 2 centuries. Lucy, the Ghoul, and Maximus are going to arrive at the observatory to find it already under siege. The NCR is outnumbered and outgunned. The reactor is still running, but the building is taking damage, and it's only a matter of time before something critical gets hit. And they're going to have to make a choice. They can try to defend the reactor, which probably means dying alongside the NCR. They can try to evacuate the reactor's core and move it somewhere safer, which is technically possible, but incredibly dangerous. Or they can destroy it themselves, deny it to everyone, and make sure that no faction gets the power to dominate the Wasteland. The Ghoul is going to argue for the third option. He's going to say that humanity has proven over and over that it can't be trusted with power, that whoever controls the reactor is going to use it to hurt people, and that the Wasteland is better off without it. Lucy is going to argue for the first option. She's going to say that the NCR deserves a chance, that the reactor represents hope, and that destroying it is giving up on the idea that things can get better. And Maximus is going to argue for the second option. He's going to say that they can protect the reactor if they move it, that they can find a way to share the power instead of letting one faction control it, that there has to be a middle path between hope and cynicism. They're going to go with Maximus's plan, because it's the only one that doesn't require them to give up or die. But executing that plan is going to be nearly impossible. The reactor core is massive and delicate. Moving it requires specialized equipment that they don't have. And they're going to have to do it while fighting off 3 different armies, any one of which could kill them. It's going to require help from Mr. House, who's going to provide Securitrons and technical expertise in exchange for a promise that Lucy will owe him a favor later. It's a devil's bargain, and Lucy knows it, but she's going to make it anyway because the alternative is worse. The evacuation sequence is going to be the action climax of the season. The Ghoul is going to hold off the Vault-Tec strike team, and it's going to be personal because the team leader is probably going to be someone he knows, someone from before the war, maybe even someone who worked with Barb. He's going to kill them slowly and brutally, and it's going to feel like revenge but taste like ash. Maximus is going to hold off the Brotherhood, and it's going to be heartbreaking because he's going to be fighting people he trained with, people who saved his life, people who are just following orders. He's going to try to talk them down, to make them see that they're on the wrong side and they're not going to listen. And he's going to have to kill them anyway, because they're not going to stop. Lucy is going to be the one actually moving the reactor core, working with NCR engineers and House's robots to disconnect it from the building's power grid and load it onto a transport. It's delicate work, and one mistake could cause a meltdown that would kill everyone in the building and irradiate the entire area. She's going to be terrified, but she's going to do it anyway because this is what she came to the surface for. Not to find her father, not to learn the truth about Vault-Tec, but to make a difference, to do something that actually matters. And saving the reactor matters more than anything else she's done. They're going to get the core out of the building just as the Legion breaks through the NCR's defensive line. The building is going to collapse behind them, and they're going to have maybe 30 seconds to get clear before the whole structure comes down. The Ghoul is going to be the last one out, because of course he is. And he's going to be injured badly, because the show needs to raise the stakes and make us think he might actually die. Lucy is going to go back for him, even though it's suicidal, even though the building is literally falling apart around them. And Maximus is going to cover them both, holding off the Legion Raiders with nothing but a rifle and determination. They're going to make it out. Barely. The building is going to collapse. The Legion is going to retreat. The Brotherhood is going to pull back and regroup. And the NCR is going to have the reactor core intact and functional, ready to be installed in a new location. It's a victory, but it's a costly one. The NCR lost dozens of soldiers, the observatory is destroyed, and Lucy, the Ghoul, and Maximus are all injured and exhausted and running on fumes. But they won. They actually won. And that's going to feel like a miracle because victories in the wasteland are rare and precious and never come without a price. The season is going to end with the NCR moving the reactor to a new location, somewhere defensible, somewhere they can build a settlement around it. They're going to invite Lucy to stay, to help them build the new world they're trying to create. And she's going to be tempted because this is what she's been fighting for. But she's going to say no because her mission isn't finished. Vault-Tec is still out there. Her father is still out there. And as long as the vaults are running experiments and the executives are sleeping in their cryopods, the wasteland is never going to be safe. The Ghoul is going to be recovering from his injuries, and Lucy is going to sit with him. And they're going to have a conversation that's been building since they met. She's going to ask him if it was worth it. 200 years of survival, 200 years of killing and suffering and losing everything that made him human. Was it worth it? And the Ghoul is going to look at her, and he's going to see the person she's become. This survivor who's still holding on to her principles even after everything the wasteland has thrown at her. And he's going to say yes, not because his life was worth living, but because he lived long enough to meet her, to help her, to see that maybe humanity isn't completely doomed after all. It's going to be the closest thing to a happy moment that the Ghoul has had in 2 centuries, and it's going to break your heart. Maximus is going to make a decision about his future. The Brotherhood is going to send him a message, a final offer. Come back, face trial for his betrayal, and maybe they'll show mercy, or stay gone, and they'll hunt him forever. And Maximus is going to burn the message without reading the whole thing because he already knows his answer. He's not going back. He's not Brotherhood anymore. He's something else now. Something better, and he's going to spend the rest of his life trying to figure out what that is. Lucy is going to be there when he burns the message, and she's going to take his hand. And they're not going to say anything because they don't need to. They both know what they're choosing. They're choosing each other, and the mission, and the hope that maybe they can actually make a difference. The final scene of the season is going to be the 3 of them, Lucy, the Ghoul, and Maximus, standing on a ridge overlooking the wasteland. The sun is setting, painting the ruins in shades of orange and red. In the distance, they can see New Vegas still glowing, still standing. And beyond that, they can see smoke rising from a dozen different settlements, proof that people are out there, surviving, building, trying. The wasteland is still dangerous, it's still cruel, but it's also full of people who refuse to give up, who refuse to let the apocalypse be the end of the story. And Lucy is going to say something simple, something that captures everything the show has been building toward. She's going to say, let's go find the others, because there are other vaults out there, other experiments, other people who need help. And now that they know the truth about Vault-Tec, now that they've proven that the system can be fought, they have a responsibility to spread that knowledge, to free the people who are still trapped, to make sure that Vault-Tec's plan fails completely and permanently. The ghoul is going to nod, Maximus is going to check his rifle, and the three of them are going to walk down from the ridge into the wasteland of Brescia toward whatever comes next. The camera is going to pull back, showing them getting smaller and smaller against the vast empty landscape, three tiny figures in a world that's trying to kill them. But they're still moving forward. They're still fighting. And that's going to be the final image of the season, a promise that the story isn't over, that there are more battles to fight and more people to save and more truths to uncover. Season 2 is also going to introduce us to some of the other vaults that Vault-Tec built, and each one is going to be a horror story in its own right. We're going to see a vault where the experiment was about class warfare, where the residents were divided into upper and lower levels, and the upper level was given all the resources while the lower level was left to starve. That vault is going to be a war zone when Lucy finds it, with the lower level residents having finally revolted and the upper level residents barricaded in their luxury quarters, both sides convinced that they're the victims. Lucy is going to try to mediate, and she's going to fail because the hatred runs too deep and the wounds are too fresh. The best she's going to be able to do is evacuate the children before the violence consumes everyone. We're going to see a vault where the experiment was about democracy, where every decision had to be put to a vote, even life or death decisions. That vault is going to be paralyzed by bureaucracy, with people literally dying while committees debate whether to allocate medical resources. The residents are going to be so committed to the process that they can't see how the process is killing them. And when Lucy tries to explain that sometimes you need to act without consensus, that sometimes leadership means making hard choices, they're going to vote to exile her for promoting authoritarianism. It's going to be darkly funny and deeply tragic, a perfect encapsulation of how Vault-Tec weaponized even good ideas. We're going to see a vault where the experiment was about isolation, where each resident was kept in a separate room and only allowed to communicate through text messages. That vault is going to be full of people who've forgotten how to have face-to-face conversations, who've developed elaborate online personas that have nothing to do with who they really are, who've convinced themselves that they're connected when they're actually more alone than anyone in the wasteland. When Lucy opens that vault and tries to get people to leave, they're going to refuse because the outside world is too overwhelming, too real, too full of actual human contact. Some of them are going to choose to stay in their rooms and die rather than face the surface. It's going to be a commentary on social media and digital isolation, and it's going to hit harder than any speech could. Each of these vaults is going to teach Lucy something about Vault-Tec's philosophy and about human nature. The class warfare vault is going to teach her that you can't fix systemic inequality with good intentions. The democracy vault is going to teach her that process without pragmatism is just another form of paralysis. The isolation vault is going to teach her that connection requires vulnerability, and that safety and comfort can be prisons just as much as walls and locks. These aren't going to be easy lessons, and Lucy isn't going to learn them quickly. She's going to make mistakes. She's going to try to save people who don't want to be saved. She's going to watch communities tear themselves apart because Vault-Tec designed them to fail. And slowly, painfully, she's going to accept that she can't save everyone, but that doesn't mean she should stop trying to save anyone. The ghoul is going to have his own journey through these vaults, and it's going to be different from Lucy's. He's seen this before. He's opened vaults and found horrors. He's tried to help people and watched them reject his help. He's learned that most vault dwellers are too broken by their experiments to ever really adapt to the surface. So when Lucy is trying to save people, the ghoul is going to be looking for information. He's going to be searching through Vault-Tec's records, looking for any mention of his daughter, any clue about which vault she might be in. And he's going to find breadcrumbs, hints, references to a special vault that was reserved for the families of Vault-Tec executives. A vault that was supposed to be paradise, where the children of the people who ended the world could grow up safe and happy and completely ignorant of what their parents had done. That vault is going to be Vault 1 or Vault 0 or some other significant number that marks it as special. And it's going to be the final destination of the ghoul's quest, the place where all his searching has been leading. But he's not going to reach it in Season 2. Season 2 is going to end with him finally getting a concrete location, a set of coordinates, proof that Janie is there or was there, and he's going to look at Lucy and Maximus, and he's going to tell them that he has to go alone because this is personal and he can't risk them getting hurt. And Lucy is going to tell him that's not how this works anymore, that they're a team, that she's not letting him walk into a Vault-Tec facility alone. And the ghoul is going to argue, and Lucy is going to stand her ground, and eventually he's going to give in because he's tired of being alone and because somewhere deep down he knows that he needs them as much as they need him. Maximus is going to have his own subplot involving the Brotherhood's pursuit. They're not going to give up on him. They're going to send hunters, elite knights, whose only job is to track down traitors and make examples of them. And Maximus is going to have to stay one step ahead of them while also helping Lucy and the ghoul with their mission. It's going to be exhausting and terrifying, and there are going to be moments when he wonders if he made the right choice, if he should have just stayed with the Brotherhood and followed orders and lived a simple life. But then he's going to see Lucy risk her life to save a stranger, or watch the ghoul show unexpected mercy. And he's going to remember why he left. Because the Brotherhood doesn't do mercy. They don't do compassion. They do power and control and violence, and Maximus wants to be something better than that. The hunters are going to catch up to them at least once during the season, and it's going to lead to a brutal fight. Maximus is going to be facing off against someone he knows, maybe even someone he considered a friend, and that person is going to try to talk him into coming back, to appeal to their shared history, to remind him of all the times the Brotherhood saved his life. And Maximus is going to have to explain that the Brotherhood didn't save his life. They gave him a purpose, but they also took away his freedom, his ability to think for himself, his chance to be anything other than a soldier. And the hunter is going to say that freedom is overrated, that most people can't handle freedom, that they need structure and discipline and someone to tell them what to do. And Maximus is going to realize that his friend is right, for some people, but not for him. Not anymore. The fight is going to end with Maximus winning, but not killing his opponent. He's going to have the chance to execute the hunter, to eliminate the threat permanently, and he's going to choose not to. He's going to let them live, take their weapons and armor, and send them back to the Brotherhood with a message. The message is going to be simple. Stop hunting me, or next time I won't be merciful. It's a bluff, mostly because Maximus doesn't want to kill his former brothers, but it's also a promise because he's learned that sometimes the only language the Brotherhood understands is violence. The hunter is going to limp away, and Maximus is going to watch them go, and he's going to feel something complicated, not quite regret, not quite relief. Just the weight of knowing that he's made an enemy of the only family he's ever known, and there's no going back. Lucy is going to witness that fight, and it's going to change how she sees Maximus. She's been thinking of him as the good one, the one who still has his moral compass intact. But watching him fight someone he cares about, watching him make the choice to spare them, even though it puts all of them in danger, she's going to realize that Maximus is just as complicated as she is. He's not a hero. He's not a villain. He's just a person trying to do the right thing in a world that punishes you for having principles, and that's going to make her love him more, not less, because it means he's real. He's not the idealized knight she imagined when they first met. He's someone who's struggling with the same question she is, and that makes him someone she can actually build a life with, assuming they survive long enough to have a life. The romance between Lucy and Maximus is going to develop slowly and realistically throughout Season 2. There are going to be moments of connection, quiet conversations around campfires, shared looks during battles, hands touching when one of them is injured and the other is patching them up. But there's also going to be tension, arguments about strategy and morality, times when they're both too exhausted and traumatized to be good to each other. It's not going to be a fairy tale. It's going to be two damaged people trying to figure out if they can trust each other with their hearts when they're barely managing to trust each other with their lives. There's going to be a scene, probably around the midpoint of the season, where they finally kiss. It's going to happen after a battle, when they're both covered in blood and dust and barely standing. Maximus is going to think Lucy is dead, and then he's going to find her alive, and the relief is going to overwhelm him. He's going to pull her close, and she's going to look up at him, and for a moment they're both going to forget about the wasteland and the mission and everything else, and they're going to kiss, and it's going to be desperate and messy and perfect. And then the moment is going to end because the wasteland doesn't allow moments to last, and they're going to have to keep moving because there are still enemies nearby and they're still not safe. But that kiss is going to change things between them. It's going to be an acknowledgement that what they have is real, that it matters, that they're not just allies or friends, but something more. And that's going to make everything harder because now they have something to lose. Now, when one of them is in danger, the other is going to be terrified in a way they weren't before. Now, every mission is going to carry the weight of knowing that if something goes wrong, they're not just losing a companion, they're losing the person they love. And the wasteland is very good at taking away the people you love. The ghoul is going to watch their relationship develop with mixed feelings. On one hand, he's going to be genuinely happy for them because he remembers what it was like to be in love, to have someone who made the wasteland feel less empty. On the other hand, he's going to be terrified for them because he knows how that story ends. He loved Barb, and she helped destroy the world. He loved Janie, and he lost her. Love in the wasteland is a liability, a weakness that your enemies can exploit, a source of pain that never really goes away. He's going to try to warn them in his own gruff way, but they're not going to listen because they're young and they think they can beat the odds. And the ghoul is going to let them believe it because maybe they're right. Maybe their generation can have something his generation couldn't. Maybe the wasteland is changing slowly and love doesn't have to be a tragedy anymore, but he's not going to believe it. Not really, because the ghoul has seen too much, survived too long, lost too many people. He's going to prepare himself for the inevitable moment when one of them dies and the other falls apart, and he's going to plan to be there to pick up the pieces. That's his role now. Not the hero, not the mentor, breaks my ice, but the survivor who's seen it all before and knows how to keep going when everything falls apart. It's a lonely role, but it's the only one he knows how to play. There's going to be a subplot about the ghoul's deteriorating condition. Ghouls need a specific drug to stay sane, to keep from going feral, and that drug is rare and expensive. The ghoul has been managing his supply carefully, rationing it, doing whatever he has to do to get more. But in Season 2, the supply is going to start running out. Maybe the people who manufacture it are dead. Maybe the Brotherhood has been destroying the production facilities. Maybe Vault-Tec has been buying up the supply to weaponize the feral ghouls. Whatever the reason, the ghoul is going to be facing the very real possibility that he's going to go feral, that he's going to lose his mind and become the kind of monster he's been killing for 2 centuries. Lucy is going to notice the signs first. The ghoul is going to be more irritable, more violent, less in control. He's going to have moments where he doesn't recognize her, where he looks at her like she's prey instead of a person. And she's going to realize what's happening, and she's going to make it her mission to find more of the drug because she can't lose him. Not now. Not after everything they've been through together. She's going to drag Maximus across the wasteland, following every lead, chasing every rumor, trying to find someone who can help. And most of those leads are going to be dead-end scams, traps set by people who know that desperate people make easy marks. But eventually, she's going to find a lead that's real. There's a facility, maybe a Vault-Tec research lab, maybe a pre-war pharmaceutical company that still has a stockpile of the drug. It's heavily guarded, either by robots or by a faction that's using the drug as leverage, and Lucy is going to have to break in and steal it, which is going to require planning and stealth and skills she's still learning. Maximus is going to help, and the ghoul is going to try to stop them because he doesn't want them risking their lives for him. He's going to say that he's lived long enough, that going feral might even be a mercy, that they should let him go. And Lucy is going to tell him that she doesn't care what he wants, that he doesn't get to give up, that she's saving him whether he likes it or not. The heist is going to be tense and dangerous, and it's going to go wrong in at least 3 different ways. They're going to trigger alarms. They're going to run into guards they didn't expect. The facility is going to start self-destructing because of course it is. But they're going to get the drug, and they're going to get out, and Lucy is going to inject the ghoul with enough of it to stabilize him. And he's going to look at her, really look at her, and he's going to see his daughter in her. Not literally, but the same determination, the same refusal to accept that some people are beyond saving. And he's going to say thank you, which is maybe the first time he's said those words in 200 years. And Lucy is going to cry because she's been holding it together through the whole ordeal, and now that it's over, she can finally let herself feel how scared she was. That moment is going to deepen the bond between Lucy and the ghoul. It's going to shift their relationship from reluctant allies to something more like family. The ghoul is going to stop seeing her as a naive vault dweller who needs to be taught harsh lessons. He's going to start seeing her as an equal, someone who's proven herself, someone who's earned his respect and his trust. And Lucy is going to stop seeing him as a monster who happens to be useful. She's going to start seeing him as a person, someone who's been hurt and broken and is still trying to do the right thing in his own twisted way. They're not going to become soft with each other. The ghoul is still going to be sarcastic and brutal, and Lucy is still going to call him out when he crosses lines, but there's going to be an understanding between them, a recognition that they're both survivors and they're both doing the best they can with what they have. Maximus is going to feel a little left out of that dynamic because he doesn't have the same history with the ghoul. He respects the ghoul, maybe even fears him a little, but he doesn't understand him the way Lucy does. And there's going to be a moment where Maximus asks the ghoul why he keeps going. What's the point of surviving for 200 years if you've lost everything that made life worth living? And the ghoul is going to give him an answer that's both honest and devastating. He's going to say that there is no point, that he keeps going because stopping would mean admitting that the last 2 centuries were meaningless, that everyone he loved died for nothing, that the world ended, and there's no coming back from that. He keeps going because the alternative is despair, and despair is the one thing he can't afford. It's not a hopeful answer, it's not even a good answer, but it's the truth, and Maximus is going to respect him for saying it. That conversation is going to haunt Maximus for the rest of the season. He's going to start questioning his own motivations, wondering if he's fighting for a better future or just fighting because he doesn't know how to stop. And Lucy is going to notice that he's struggling, and she's going to try to help him, but she's struggling with the same questions. They're both trying to find meaning in a world that seems designed to crush meaning out of people. And the only answer they're going to find is each other. They're going to decide that if the world doesn't have inherent meaning, they'll create their own. They'll fight for each other, for the people they can save, for the small moments of beauty and connection that make life worth living, even in the wasteland. It's not a grand philosophical revelation. It's just 2 people deciding that they'd rather try and fail than give up and die. The NCR storyline is going to develop in parallel to the main plot, and it's going to show us what rebuilding actually looks like. It's not going to be clean or easy or inspiring. It's going to be messy and frustrating and full of setbacks. The NCR remnants are going to be trying to establish a new settlement around the cold fusion reactor, and they're going to run into every problem you can imagine. They don't have enough food, they don't have enough water, they don't have enough building materials. The land is irradiated, and the soil is dead, and the local wildlife is mutated and aggressive. And on top of all that, they're going to be dealing with internal conflicts, arguments about leadership and resource allocation, and whether they should focus on defense or expansion. We're going to meet several NCR characters who represent different philosophies about how to rebuild. There's going to be a pragmatist who thinks they should focus on survival first and worry about democracy later. There's going to be an idealist who thinks that if they compromise on their principles, they're no better than the people who destroyed the old world. There's going to be a militarist who thinks they need to secure their borders and eliminate threats before they can build anything lasting. And there's going to be a diplomat who thinks they need to form alliance with other factions, even factions they don't trust, because they can't survive alone. All of these positions are going to be valid, and all of them are going to be in conflict, and the NCR is going to have to figure out how to balance them without tearing itself apart. Lucy is going to be drawn into these debates because the NCR is going to see her as a symbol. She's a Vault dweller who rejected Vault-Tec. She's someone who's fought the Brotherhood and survived. She's someone who helped save the reactor. Different factions within the NCR are going to try to recruit her, to use her as the spokesperson for their position, and Lucy is going to hate it because she doesn't want to be a symbol. She just wants to help. But she's going to realize that sometimes helping means taking a side, means using whatever influence you have to push for the outcome you think is right. And she's going to have to figure out what she actually believes, what kind of society she wants to help build. The answer she comes to is going to be complicated and imperfect. She's going to support the idealist when it comes to principles, the pragmatist when it comes to survival, the militarist when it comes to defending against real threats, and the diplomats when it comes to building alliances. She's going to try to be everything to everyone, and it's going to be exhausting and impossible. And eventually she's going to realize that she can't fix the NCR's problems, that they have to figure it out themselves. Her job isn't to lead them. Her job is to give them the tools they need, the information about Vault-Tec, the access to resources, the protection from external threats. And then she has to trust them to do the rest. That's going to be a hard lesson for Lucy because she's a fixer. She sees problems and she wants to solve them. But the NCR's problems aren't the kind you can solve with a gun or a clever plan. They're systemic, cultural, the kind of problems that take generations to work through. And Lucy is going to have to accept that she's planting seeds she'll never see grow, that the world she's fighting for might not exist in her lifetime. It's a mature realization. And it's going to mark her transition from a young woman trying to save everyone to a leader who understands that sometimes the best you can do is make things a little bit better and hope that the people who come after you can take it from there. The show is also going to explore the wider wasteland politics and how the different factions are positioning themselves for the future. The Brotherhood of Steel is going to be revealed as more fractured than they initially appeared. There are going to be different chapters with different priorities, and they're not all going to agree on how to handle the situation in the Mojave. The West Coast Brotherhood, the ones we've been seeing, are hardliners who believe in hoarding technology and maintaining their superiority through force. But there are going to be hints of other chapters, maybe even an East Coast contingent, who have different philosophies about sharing technology and working with wastelanders. This internal conflict within the Brotherhood is going to create opportunities for our protagonists. Maximus is going to try to reach out to the more moderate elements, to convince them that the West Coast chapter has gone too far, that they're becoming the very thing they were supposed to protect humanity from. And some of them are going to listen, because Maximus is a true believer who left, and that means something. If someone who was completely loyal to the Brotherhood's ideals decided that the organization had betrayed those ideals, maybe there's something to that. Maybe the Brotherhood needs to change, or it's going to destroy itself, but change is slow, and the hardliners are in control, and they're not going to give up power without a fight. There's going to be a civil war brewing within the Brotherhood, and it's going to come to a head in Season 3. Season 2 is going to plant the seeds, show us the factions forming, the arguments happening behind closed doors, the younger knights questioning their orders while the elder paladins double down on tradition. Maximus is going to become a symbol for the reformers, the knight who chose conscience over duty, and that's going to make him even more dangerous to the leadership. They can't just kill him anymore. They have to discredit him, prove that he was a traitor all along, that his defection was about cowardice or selfishness rather than principle. The Legion is going to be portrayed as an existential threat that forces everyone else to cooperate, at least temporarily. Caesar's legion in the games is a brutal slave-holding empire that believes in total war and the subjugation of everyone who isn't part of their tribe. The show is going to lean into that horror, showing us what the legion does to the communities it conquers. We're going to see crucifixions. We're going to see slavery. We're going to see women being treated as property and children being indoctrinated into the legion's death cult. It's going to be deeply uncomfortable to watch, and it's supposed to be, because the Legion represents everything that's wrong with the wasteland taken to its logical extreme. Lucy is going to be absolutely horrified by the Legion. She's seen violence, she's seen cruelty, but the Legion is organized cruelty, systematic dehumanization on a scale she couldn't have imagined. And she's going to want to stop them, not just because they're a threat to the NCR or to her mission, but because they're an affront to everything she believes about human dignity and worth. The Ghoul is going to tell her that the Legion is just another faction, that they're not worse than the Brotherhood or Vault-Tec, just more honest about what they are. And Lucy is going to reject that completely. She's going to say that there's a difference between people who do bad things because they think they have to, and people who do bad things because they enjoy it, because they've built an entire philosophy around cruelty being a virtue. That argument is going to be one of the few times Lucy and the Ghoul genuinely disagree on something fundamental. The Ghoul has become so cynical that he sees all factions as equally corrupt, just with different aesthetics. Lucy still believes that some things are objectively worse than others, that the Legion's philosophy of might makes right and their systematic brutality puts them in a different category from groups that are just trying to survive. And she's going to be right, and the show is going to make that clear, but it's also going to show that being right doesn't make stopping them any easier. The Legion is going to launch a major offensive in the second half of Season 2, and it's going to force the NCR, the Brotherhood, and even some of the independent settlements to work together. It's going to be an uneasy alliance, full of mistrust and conflicting agendas. But it's going to be necessary because the Legion is strong enough to destroy any single faction. The battle is going to be massive, probably the biggest action sequence the show has done, with multiple fronts and different groups of characters fighting in different locations. Lucy is going to be coordinating with the NCR. Maximus is going to be leading a group of Brotherhood defectors. The Ghoul is going to be doing what he does best, which is causing chaos behind enemy lines and killing anyone who gets in his way. The battle is going to be brutal and costly. The Alliance is going to win, but barely. And the victory is going to come at a terrible price. Entire settlements are going to be destroyed. Characters we've come to care about are going to die, and the Legion is going to retreat, but not break. They're going to pull back to regroup, and everyone is going to know that this was just the first round, that the real war is still coming. But the Alliance is going to prove something important. It's going to prove that the factions can work together when they have to, that cooperation is possible even in the wasteland. And that's going to give Lucy hope, because if they can unite against the Legion, maybe they can unite to rebuild civilization, but the Alliance is going to fall apart almost immediately after the battle. The Brotherhood is going to demand payment for their help, probably in the form of technology or territory. The NCR is going to refuse, saying they can't afford to give up resources when they're trying to rebuild. And the independent settlements are going to be caught in the middle, trying to figure out which side to support. The fragile cooperation is going to shatter, and everyone is going to go back to pursuing their own interests, and Lucy is going to be devastated because she thought they'd learned something. She thought the battle had changed things, but the wasteland doesn't change. People don't change. They just survive. And then they go back to fighting over the scraps. Except that's not quite true. Some things did change. Maximus proved that Brotherhood soldiers can defect and survive. The NCR proved that they can defend their territory and their principles, and Lucy proved that Vault Dwellers aren't just naive victims waiting to be exploited. They're people who can adapt, who can fight, who can make a difference. Those changes are small, and they're fragile, but they're real, and they're going to be the foundation for everything that comes after. There's going to be a subplot about technology and what it means in the wasteland. The Brotherhood hoards it. Vault-Tec weaponizes it. The NCR wants to use it to rebuild. and Mr. House sees it as the key to transcending Earth entirely. Each faction has a different philosophy about technology, and those philosophies are going to come into direct conflict. The cold fusion reactor is the most obvious example, but there are going to be others: pre-war weapons, medical technology, communication systems, agricultural equipment. Every piece of old world tech is a potential game changer, and every faction wants to control it. Lucy is going to develop her own philosophy about technology, and it's going to be different from all the factions. She's going to believe that technology should be shared, that knowledge should be free, that the only way to prevent another apocalypse is to make sure that no single group has a monopoly on the tools of civilization. And it's an idealistic position, and it's going to be challenged constantly. The Ghoul is going to point out that giving everyone access to weapons just means more people die. Maximus is going to point out that some technology is too dangerous to share, that there are things humanity isn't ready for, and House is going to point out that without centralized control, technology gets misused and wasted. But Lucy is going to stick to her position because she's seen what happens when technology is hoarded. The Brotherhood becomes stagnant and authoritarian. Vault-Tec uses it to run experiments on captive populations. House uses it to pursue his own vision without caring what anyone else wants. The only way to break that cycle is to democratize technology, to give people the tools they need to build their own futures. It's not going to be a perfect solution. Some people are going to misuse the technology. Some communities are going to make bad decisions, but at least they'll be their own decisions, made by people who have to live with the consequences. This philosophy is going to put Lucy at odds with literally everyone, including her allies. The NCR is going to want to control the distribution of technology to make sure it goes to people who will use it responsibly. The Brotherhood reformers are going to want to maintain some level of oversight to prevent weapons from falling into the wrong hands. Even the followers of the Apocalypse, who generally support free access to knowledge, are going to have concerns about sharing certain types of information. And Lucy is going to have to defend her position, to explain why she thinks the risk of misuse is worth it if it means people have the freedom to choose their own path. The debate is going to come to a head when they discover a cache of pre-war military technology, weapons, armor, maybe even vehicles or aircraft. It's enough firepower to change the balance of power in the entire region. The Brotherhood is going to want to confiscate it. The NCR is going to want to secure it for their own defense. The Legion is going to want to destroy it or steal it. And Lucy is going to propose something radical. She's going to suggest that they destroy it, that they make sure no one can use it, because the wasteland doesn't need more weapons. It needs food and medicine and clean water and the tools to build a sustainable civilization. It's going to be a controversial position, and not everyone is going to agree with it. Maximus is going to argue that they need those weapons to defend against the Legion. The Ghoul is going to argue that destroying resources is wasteful when people are starving, and Lucy is going to have to make a choice. Does she stick to her principles even if it means leaving her allies vulnerable? Or does she compromise, accept that sometimes you need weapons to protect the things you're trying to build? The answer she comes to is going to be a compromise, but not the one anyone expects. She's going to agree to distribute the weapons, but only to communities that commit to using them for defense, not conquest. She's going to create a network of armed settlements that can protect each other, a mutual defense pact that doesn't require centralized control. It's not perfect. Some communities are going to break their word, some weapons are going to end up in the wrong hands, but it's better than letting one faction control everything, and it's better than leaving people defenseless. It's a pragmatic solution to an impossible problem, and it's going to show how much Lucy has grown from the idealistic vault dweller who thought the golden rule could solve everything. Mr. House is going to become a much more prominent character in the second half of Season 2, and his presence is going to complicate everything. In the games, House is a pre-war genius who put himself in a life support chamber and has been running New Vegas through his Securitron army for 2 centuries. He's brilliant, ruthless, and completely convinced that his vision for humanity's future is the only one that matters. The show is going to lean into all of that, but it's also going to add layers that the games only hinted at. We're going to see House's connection to Vault-Tec, his role in the pre-war conspiracy, and his complicated feelings about the world he helped destroy. House is going to reveal that he knew the bombs were coming. He was at that Vault-Tec meeting, or one like it, and he heard the plan. But unlike the other executives who were excited about the profit potential, House saw it as an opportunity. He saw that the old world was going to end, and he positioned himself to control what came after. He built his Securitron army. He fortified the Lucky 38. He made deals with the families that would eventually run the casinos, and when the bombs fell, he was ready. Not ready enough to save everyone, not ready enough to stop the destruction, but ready enough to survive and maintain power. The Ghoul is going to confront House about this, and it's going to be one of the most intense scenes of the season, because the Ghoul remembers House from before the war. They might have even known each other, moved in the same circles, attended the same parties. And the Ghoul's going to look at House, this man who's been living in luxury for 2 centuries while the rest of humanity suffered, and he's going to see everything he hates about the old world. The greed, the arrogance, the willingness to sacrifice millions of lives for personal gain. And he's going to want to kill House. Right there, consequences be damned. But Lucy is going to stop him. Not because she likes House or trusts him, but because they need him. House controls New Vegas. He has resources, information, technology that they can't get anywhere else. And if they kill him, the Securitrons are programmed to go into lockdown mode and New Vegas becomes inaccessible. So Lucy is going to make the Ghoul stand down, and it's going to cost her. The Ghoul is going to look at her like she's betrayed him, like she's chosen pragmatism over justice. And Lucy is going to have to live with that, have to accept that sometimes doing the right thing means protecting people who don't deserve protection. House is going to make them an offer they can't refuse. He's going to give them access to his network, his intelligence on all the factions, his predictions about where the conflicts are heading. He's going to offer them sanctuary in New Vegas when they need it. He's going to even offer them weapons and supplies, but in exchange, he wants something specific. He wants them to retrieve something for him, something that's in a Vault-Tec facility that he can't access himself. And he's not going to tell them what it is, just that it's crucial to his long-term plans and that they're the only ones who can get it. Lucy is going to be suspicious, obviously. She's going to want to know what they're retrieving, what House is planning to do with it. And House is going to give her a non-answer, something about how knowledge is power, and some things are better left as surprises. And Lucy is going to have to decide whether to trust him, knowing that he's manipulating them, knowing that whatever they retrieve is probably going to be used for something morally questionable. But the alternative is refusing House's help and trying to survive without his resources, and that might not be possible. They're going to take the deal. They're going to go to the Vault-Tec facility, and it's going to be one of the most dangerous missions of the season. The facility is going to be deep underground, heavily secured, full of automated defenses and possibly still active experiments. And what they find there is going to be shocking. It's going to be a database, a complete record of every Vault-Tec experiment, every Vault location, every executive, every piece of the conspiracy. It's everything they need to take down Vault-Tec permanently. And House wants it, which means he's planning something big. Lucy is going to make a copy of the database before they give it to House. She's going to do it secretly, without telling him, because she doesn't trust him not to destroy the information or use it for his own purposes. And when they deliver the database to House, he's going to know immediately that she made a copy. Because of course he knows he's been playing this game for 200 years and Lucy is still learning the rules. But instead of being angry, House is going to be impressed. He's going to tell her that she's smarter than he gave her credit for, that she's learning to think like a survivor instead of a vault dweller. And that's going to feel like a compliment and an insult at the same time. House is going to reveal his plan, at least part of it. He's going to use the Vault-Tec database to locate the main Vault-Tec headquarters, the place where the top executives are sleeping in cryostasis, waiting to wake up and reclaim the world. And he's going to destroy it, not because he cares about justice or revenge, but because Vault-Tec represents competition. They have their own vision for humanity's future, and it conflicts with his. So he's going to eliminate them, and then he's going to position himself as the only person with the resources and knowledge to actually rebuild civilization. It's a power play, pure and simple, and House isn't even trying to hide it. Lucy is going to be conflicted about this. On one hand, destroying Vault-Tec's leadership is exactly what she wants. These are the people who ended the world, who ran experiments on captive populations, who destroyed Shady Sands and countless other communities. They deserve to be stopped. On the other hand, letting House do it means giving him even more power, making him the dominant force in the wasteland, and House's vision for the future isn't much better than Vault-Tec's. He wants to rebuild civilization, but only according to his specifications, with him in control. It's just trading one authoritarian system for another. The Ghoul is going to tell Lucy that it doesn't matter. Let House and Vault-Tec destroy each other. Let the factions fight over the scraps. The wasteland has survived worse, and it'll survive this. But Lucy is going to reject that nihilism. She's going to say that it does matter, that who wins these conflicts determines what kind of world her brother and the other Vault Dwellers are going to inherit. She can't just stand by and let the powerful decide everything. She has to try to influence the outcome, even if her influence is small. So Lucy is going to make a plan. She's going to use the copy of the database she made to expose Vault-Tec publicly. She's going to share the information with the NCR, with the followers, with every settlement and faction that will listen. She's going to make sure that everyone knows what Vault-Tec did, who was responsible, and where they're hiding. And then she's going to let the wasteland decide what to do about it. It's a democratic approach to justice, and it's risky because there's no guarantee that people will make the right choice. But it's better than letting House or any other single person control the narrative. House is going to be furious when he finds out. He's going to see it as a betrayal, a violation of their agreement. He gave them resources and protection, and they used those resources to undermine his plan. He's going to threaten them, tell them that they've made an enemy of the most powerful person in the wasteland. And Lucy is going to stand her ground. She's going to tell House that she never agreed to help him become a dictator, that their deal was about stopping Vault-Tec, not about giving him unlimited power. And if he wants to come after them, they'll deal with that. But they're not going to be complicit in creating another authoritarian regime. That confrontation is going to be the moment when Lucy fully comes into her own as a leader. She's not just reacting to events anymore. She's not just trying to survive or find her father or learn the truth. She's actively shaping the future, making choices that will affect thousands of people, standing up to power even when it's dangerous. She's become the person the wasteland needs, someone who has principles but also pragmatism, someone who can make hard choices but still cares about doing the right thing. House is going to let them go, but only because killing them would be more trouble than it's worth. They've made the database public, so there's no point in silencing them now. And House is smart enough to know that martyrs are more dangerous than living opponents. So he's going to let them walk out of New Vegas, but he's going to make it clear that their alliance is over. They're on their own now. And if they ever need his help again, they're not going to get it. It's a cold ending to their partnership, but it's the only one that makes sense given what Lucy did. The revelation of the Vault-Tec database is going to send shockwaves through the wasteland. Communities that had Vault-Tec overseers are going to revolt. Vaults that were still running experiments are going to be stormed by angry mobs. The executives who are still in cryosleep are going to become targets, with bounty hunters and revenge seekers racing to find them first. It's going to be chaos, but it's also going to be cathartic. For the first time since the bombs fell, the people who caused the apocalypse are going to face consequences. Not legal consequences, because there's no legal system, but wasteland justice, which is brutal and immediate and final. The Ghoul is going to participate in this reckoning. He's going to use the database to find Barb's location, and he's going to go there with the intention of killing her. And Lucy is going to go with him because she knows he shouldn't face this alone. When they find Barb's cryopod, and it's going to be in a Vault-Tec executive facility that's been abandoned for decades, the power is failing. The life support systems are barely functioning. And Barb is still alive, still sleeping, completely unaware that the world she helped destroy has been suffering for 2 centuries. The Ghoul is going to stand over her pod, and he's going to have the choice. He can wake her up, confront her, make her answer for what she did, or he can just shut off the life support and let her die in her sleep, never knowing what happened. And Lucy's going to ask him what he wants, what would actually give him closure. And the Ghoul is going to realize that he doesn't know. He's been imagining this moment for 200 years, and now that it's here, he doesn't know what he wants. Revenge? Answers? An apology? None of those things are going to bring back the world that was lost or the life he had. He's going to choose to wake her up because he needs to see her face when she realizes what she did. He needs her to know that he survived, that he's been living with the consequences of her choices for 2 centuries. And when Barb wakes up, confused and disoriented, the ghoul is going to tell her everything. He's going to describe the wasteland, the suffering, the mutations, the endless violence. He's going to tell her about Janie, about how he's been searching for their daughter for 200 years and still doesn't know if she's alive. And he's going to watch Barb's face as she processes all of this, as she realizes that her grand plan didn't create a controllable future. It created hell. Barb's reaction is going to be complicated. She's going to be horrified, but she's also going to try to justify it. She's going to say that they were trying to save humanity, that the vaults were supposed to preserve civilization, that the experiments were necessary to understand how to rebuild. And the ghoul is going to cut through all of that. He's going to tell her that she didn't save humanity. She destroyed it, and everything that's happened since, every death, every atrocity, every moment of suffering is her fault. And then he's going to walk away. He's not going to kill her. He's going to leave her alive in the ruins of her facility, with no resources and no way to survive. He's going to let the wasteland kill her, slowly, the same way it's been killing everyone else. It's a crueler fate than a quick death, and the ghoul knows it, and Lucy is going to watch this happen. And she's going to understand that this is what justice looks like in the wasteland. Not clean, not satisfying, just brutal and final. As they're leaving the facility, Barb is going to call out to the ghoul one last time. She's going to tell him where Janie is. She's going to reveal that their daughter was placed in a special vault, Vault 31 or a similar executive vault, and that she might still be alive. It's going to be the information the ghoul has been searching for his entire existence as a ghoul. And Barb is going to give it to him not out of love or remorse, but as a final manipulation. Because she knows that finding Janie is going to destroy him in a way that killing him never could. She knows what Vault-Tec did to the children of executives, how they were raised and indoctrinated, and she knows that the Janie the ghoul remembers is long gone. The ghoul is going to take that information, and he and Lucy are going to leave Barb to die. And as they're walking away, Lucy is going to ask him if he's okay, and the ghoul is going to laugh. It's going to be a bitter, broken sound. Because of course he's not okay, he's never been okay. But now, he has a destination, a purpose, something to focus on besides survival. He's going to find his daughter, and whatever he finds, at least he'll know. At least the searching will be over. That's going to set up the major arc for Season 3. The search for Janie, the confrontation with whatever she's become, and the ghoul's final reckoning with his past. But Season 2 is going to end before they reach that vault, with the ghoul and Lucy and Maximus standing at the coordinates Barb gave them, looking at a vault entrance that's been sealed for 2 centuries. The ghoul is going to be terrified in a way we've never seen him before, because he's about to find out if the last 200 years of searching meant anything. And Lucy is going to take his hand, a simple gesture of support. And Maximus is going to check his weapon, ready for whatever they find inside. But before they can open the vault, they're going to be interrupted. The Brotherhood is going to arrive in force, led by a high-ranking paladin who's been hunting Maximus. And the paladin is going to give them an ultimatum. Surrender Maximus for trial, hand over any technology they've recovered, and leave the area immediately, or face the full might of the Brotherhood. It's a cliffhanger designed to make the audience scream because we're so close to answers about Janie, and now there's this massive obstacle in the way. Lucy is going to look at the Brotherhood forces, then at the vault entrance, then at her companions, and she's going to make a decision. She's going to tell the Brotherhood, no, they're not surrendering. They're not leaving, and if the Brotherhood wants to stop them, they're going to have to go through her. It's a declaration of war, essentially, and it's going to shock everyone, including Maximus and the ghoul, because Lucy has always been the one trying to find peaceful solutions, trying to avoid unnecessary violence, but this isn't unnecessary. This is about protecting her family, because that's what the ghoul and Maximus have become. And she's not going to let the Brotherhood take them. The season is going to end with the beginning of a battle. The Brotherhood advancing, weapons raised, Lucy, the Ghoul, and Maximus taking defensive positions. And in the background, the vault entrance, sealed and silent, holding secrets that have waited 2 centuries to be revealed. The final shot is going to be Lucy's face, determined and fierce. No longer the naive vault dweller who emerged into the wasteland. She's a survivor now, a fighter. Someone who's learned that sometimes the only way to protect what you love is to be willing to destroy what threatens it. And then cut to black. Season 2 over. The audience is going to be left with a dozen questions. What's inside the vault? Is Janie alive? How are they going to survive against the Brotherhood? What's happening with the NCR and the reactor? What's House planning now that his alliance with Lucy is broken? What happened to Norman and the Vault 33 exodus? All of these threads are going to be left hanging, creating anticipation for Season 3. But Season 2 will have accomplished its major goals. It will have deepened all the character arcs, showing us how Lucy, the Ghoul, and Maximus have changed and grown. It will have expanded the world, introducing us to new factions and new conflicts. It will have raised the stakes, making the conflicts personal and immediate, and it will have moved the larger plot forward, bringing us closer to the ultimate confrontation with Vault-Tec and the question of what kind of future the Wasteland is going to have. The themes of Season 2 are going to be about identity, loyalty, and the cost of knowledge. Lucy is going to struggle with who she's becoming, whether she's losing herself or finding herself. Maximus is going to struggle with where his loyalty lies, whether it's to the Brotherhood that raised him or to the principles he actually believes in. And the Ghoul is going to struggle with what it means to finally get answers after 2 centuries of searching, whether knowledge actually brings closure or just opens new wounds. The show is also going to explore the question of whether the Wasteland can actually be saved, or whether humanity is doomed to repeat the same cycles of violence and exploitation. The NCR represents hope, the idea that civilization can be rebuilt. The Brotherhood represents stagnation, the idea that humanity needs to be controlled to prevent another apocalypse. The Legion represents regression, the idea that humanity needs to be broken down and rebuilt from scratch. And Vault-Tec represents manipulation, the idea that humanity is just raw material for experiments. Each faction has a different answer to the question of what comes next, and none of them are completely right or completely wrong. Lucy is going to come to represent a 5th option, one that doesn't have a name yet. It's not about rebuilding the old world, because the old world was broken. It's not about controlling people, because control breeds resentment and rebellion. It's not about breaking people down, because that just creates more trauma. And it's not about experimenting on people, because people aren't lab rats. It's about giving people the tools and knowledge they need to build their own futures, and then trusting them to do it. It's messy and unpredictable, and it's going to lead to mistakes, but it's also the only approach that actually respects human agency and dignity. That philosophy is going to be tested constantly throughout Season 2. Every time Lucy tries to help someone, she's going to have to decide how much help to give, how much to let people figure out on their own. Every time she shares information, she's going to have to accept that some people will use it badly. Every time she refuses to take control of a situation, she's going to have to watch people make choices she disagrees with. It's going to be frustrating and painful, and there are going to be moments when she wonders if the Ghoul is right, if people really do need someone to tell them what to do. But then she's going to see moments of genuine human goodness, communities coming together to help each other, people sharing resources even when they're scarce, strangers risking their lives to protect each other. And she's going to realize that humanity isn't fundamentally broken. It's been traumatized and exploited and pushed to its limits, but the capacity for kindness and cooperation is still there. It just needs space to grow, and that space only exists when people are free to make their own choices. The Ghoul is going to be skeptical of this philosophy because he's seen too many people make terrible choices. But he's also going to see Lucy living it, see her refusing to become cynical even when the Wasteland gives her every reason to. And slowly, grudgingly, he's going to start to believe that maybe she's on to something. And maybe the problem isn't that people can't be trusted. Maybe the problem is that they've never been given a real chance. The vaults controlled them, the factions manipulated them, the wasteland brutalized them. But what if someone actually gave them freedom and support and the tools to succeed? What would happen then? That's the question Season 2 is going to pose, and Season 3 is going to start answering. But the answer isn't going to be simple or clean, because this is Fallout, and nothing is ever simple or clean. There are going to be successes and failures, communities that thrive and communities that collapse, people who use their freedom to help others and people who use it to hurt others. The wasteland is going to remain dangerous and unpredictable, but there's going to be a sense that things are changing, slowly, that the future doesn't have to look like the past. The emotional core of Season 2 is going to be the found family dynamic between Lucy, the ghoul, and Maximus. They're three people who have nothing in common except trauma and determination. And somehow they've become the most important people in each other's lives. Lucy has lost her father, at least emotionally. The ghoul has lost everyone he ever loved. Maximus has lost the Brotherhood. And they've found each other. And that's going to be what keeps them going when everything else falls apart. There are going to be moments of genuine warmth between them, quiet scenes around campfires where they share stories or just sit in comfortable silence. There are going to be moments of humor, because even in the wasteland, people need to laugh. The ghoul is going to make dark jokes that horrify Lucy and confuse Maximus. Lucy is going to try to teach them vault games, and they're going to be terrible at them. Maximus is going to share Brotherhood training exercises, and Lucy is going to accidentally hurt herself trying to keep up. These moments are going to be brief, because the wasteland doesn't allow much downtime, but they're going to be precious. They're going to remind us why these characters are fighting, what they're trying to protect. The show is also going to explore what happens to the other vault dwellers who've left their vaults, not just Lucy and Norman. There are going to be other people out there who've discovered the truth about Vault-Tec and are trying to navigate the surface world. Some of them are going to adapt quickly, finding communities and building new lives. Others are going to struggle, unable to reconcile their vault upbringing with wasteland reality. And some are going to reject the surface entirely, either returning to their vaults or trying to create new enclosed communities that replicate vault life. Lucy is going to encounter several of these groups, and each one is going to show her a different possible future for vault dwellers. There's going to be a community of former vault dwellers who've created a settlement based on vault principles, order, cleanliness, adherence to rules. It's going to look like a success at first, a proof that vault culture can work on the surface. But Lucy is going to discover that they're maintaining that order through authoritarian control, that they've essentially recreated the worst aspects of vault life without the safety. They've traded one prison for another, and they don't even realize it. There's going to be another group that's gone the opposite direction, completely rejecting everything about vault culture and trying to become real wastelanders. They're going to be overcompensating, taking unnecessary risks, being needlessly violent, trying to prove that they're not soft vault dwellers anymore, and Lucy is going to see herself in them, recognize that she went through a similar phase. But she's going to have moved past it by this point, learned that you don't have to reject everything about where you came from to survive in a new place. You can take the good parts, the education, the idealism, the belief in human potential, and leave behind the bad parts, the naivety, the blind obedience, the willful ignorance. The most interesting group is going to be a community of vault dwellers who are trying to create something new, something that combines the best of vault culture with the best of wasteland culture. They're going to have structure, but also freedom. They're going to value education, but also practical skills. They're going to believe in helping others, but also in defending themselves. It's going to be messy and imperfect, full of arguments and disagreements, but it's going to be genuinely trying to build something better. And Lucy is going to be inspired by them, see them as proof that her philosophy can actually work. She's going to spend time with this community, maybe even consider staying. They're going to offer her a leadership position, Tell her that they need someone with her experience and principles. And Lucy is going to be tempted because this is what she's been fighting for, a community that actually embodies her values. But she's going to realize that she can't stay. Not yet. There are still too many vaults out there, too many people who need help, too many Vault-Tec executives who need to be stopped. Her mission isn't finished, but she's going to promise to come back to help them build their community once the larger threats are dealt with, and they're going to tell her that they'll be waiting, that there will always be a place for her there. That community is going to become important in Season 3 and beyond. It's going to be a symbol of what the wasteland could become, a proof of concept for Lucy's philosophy. And it's going to be a target, because every faction is going to see it as either a threat or an opportunity. The Brotherhood is going to want to control it. The NCR is going to want to ally with it. The Legion is going to want to destroy it. And Lucy is going to have to protect it, because if this community fails, it's going to set back the cause of Vault surface integration by decades. The relationship between Vault Dwellers and Wastelanders is going to be a major theme throughout the series. There's a lot of prejudice on both sides. Wastelanders see Vault Dwellers as soft, naive, privileged people who've never had to struggle. Vault Dwellers see Wastelanders as violent, ignorant, barbaric people who've lost their humanity. And both stereotypes have some truth to them, but they're also both incomplete. The show is going to work to break down these stereotypes, to show that people are people regardless of where they grew up, and that everyone has something to learn from everyone else. Lucy is going to be the bridge between these two worlds. She's a Vault Dweller who's learned to survive in the wasteland, who's proven that Vault Dwellers aren't inherently weak or useless, and she's going to use that credibility to advocate for other Vault Dwellers, to convince wasteland communities to give them a chance. As it's not going to be easy. There's going to be resistance, incidents where Vault Dwellers make mistakes that reinforce the stereotypes, moments when Lucy questions whether integration is even possible. But she's going to keep trying because the alternative is letting the two groups remain separate and hostile, and that's not sustainable. The Ghoul is going to have a unique perspective on this because he's technically both. He was a surface dweller before the war, lived in the old world with all its comforts and complexities. Then he became a wastelander, learned to survive in the ruins. And now he's been alive long enough to see Vault Dwellers emerging and struggling to adapt. He's going to tell Lucy that the divide between Vault and Wasteland is artificial, that it's just another way Vault-Tec has managed to control people. By creating two separate cultures that don't understand each other, Vault-Tec ensured that they couldn't unite against the real enemy. It's divide and conquer, and it's been working for 2 centuries. That realization is going to change Lucy's approach. She's going to stop trying to integrate Vault Dwellers into Wasteland culture and start trying to create a new culture that incorporates both. She's going to encourage Vault Dwellers to share their knowledge, science, medicine, engineering, while learning wasteland skills like combat, scavenging, and survival. And she's going to encourage Wastelanders to share their practical knowledge while learning from Vault Dwellers about organization, education, and long-term planning. It's going to be a cultural exchange, and it's going to be the foundation for a new kind of society. This is going to tie into the larger theme of the show, which is about what comes after the apocalypse. Not just survival, but actual rebuilding. Not just recreating the old world because the old world was broken, but creating something new. Something that learns from the mistakes of the past without being paralyzed by them. Something that values both individual freedom and collective responsibility. Something that's sustainable and just and actually worth fighting for. The show is going to suggest that this kind of society is possible, but only if people are willing to do the hard work of building it. It's not going to happen automatically. It's not going to be handed down by a benevolent leader or a powerful faction. It's going to have to be built from the ground up, community by community, person by person. And it's going to require people like Lucy who have the vision to imagine something better and the determination to make it real. But the show is also going to be honest about how difficult this is. For every community that succeeds, there are going to be 3 that fail. For every person who embraces the new culture, there are going to be 5 who cling to the old ways. Progress is going to be slow and frustrating and full of setbacks. There are going to be moments when it seems like nothing is changing, like the wasteland is going to be violent and chaotic forever. And Lucy is going to have to find the strength to keep going anyway, to believe that the work matters even when the results aren't visible. The ghoul is going to be her anchor during these moments. He's going to remind her that change happens slowly. The 2 centuries is nothing in the grand scheme of human history. He's going to tell her about the world before the war, how it took thousands of years to build civilization and only a few hours to destroy it. And he's going to tell her that if humanity could build civilization once, they can do it again. It'll take time, maybe more time than Lucy has in her lifetime. But that doesn't mean it's not worth doing. You plant trees knowing you'll never sit in their shade. You build foundations knowing you'll never see the completed building. That's what it means to actually care about the future. Those conversations are going to be some of the most important in the series because they're going to articulate the show's philosophy. Fallout has always been about the tension between cynicism and hope, between the brutal reality of the wasteland and the persistent human desire to make things better. The games let players choose which side they fall on, whether they want to help rebuild or just survive or actively make things worse. The show is going to take a position. It's going to say that hope is harder than cynicism, that building is harder than destroying, but that the difficulty is what makes it meaningful. Lucy is going to embody that hope, but she's not going to be naive about it. She's going to know that most of what she builds will probably fail. She's going to know that she's going to make mistakes, that people are going to get hurt because of her decisions, that there are no perfect solutions, but she's going to try anyway, because trying is the only thing that separates humans from the feral ghouls and the rad roaches and all the other creatures that just exist without purpose. Trying is what makes us human. Maximus is going to have his own journey with this theme. He's going to start Season 2 still believing that the Brotherhood's way is right, that humanity needs strong leadership and strict control. But as he sees Lucy's approach working, as he sees communities thriving when they're given freedom and support, he's going to start to question everything he was taught. And by the end of the season, he's going to have made a complete philosophical shift. He's going to believe in Lucy's vision, not because she convinced him with arguments, but because he saw it work. He saw people who were given freedom choose to help each other. He saw communities that were given resources use them responsibly. And he realized that the Brotherhood was wrong, that humanity doesn't need to be controlled, it needs to be trusted. That transformation is going to be painful for Maximus because it means accepting that he wasted years of his life serving an organization that was fundamentally wrong about human nature. But it's also going to be liberating because it means he gets to choose who he wants to be instead of having it dictated to him. And he's going to choose to be someone who builds instead of someone who hoards. Someone who trusts instead of someone who controls. Someone who hopes instead of someone who fears. The final major theme of Season 2 is going to be about legacy and what we leave behind. The ghoul has been alive for 2 centuries, and he's going to be forced to confront what his legacy is. He's killed thousands of people. He's caused immeasurable suffering. He's become a legend in the wasteland, but not the kind of legend anyone wants to be. He's the boogeyman, the monster parents use to scare their children into behaving. And he's going to wonder if that's all he is. If that's all he's ever going to be. But then he's going to see how he's influenced Lucy. He's taught her to survive, to fight, to make hard choices. But he's also shown her what not to become, what happens when you let the wasteland strip away everything that makes you human. And Lucy has taken those lessons and used them to become something better than either the naive vault dweller she was or the ruthless killer he is. She's found a middle path. And the ghoul is going to realize that maybe that's his legacy. Not the people he killed, but the person he helped create. Maybe that's enough. Maybe that's redemption, or as close to it as he's ever going to get. Lucy is going to be thinking about legacy too, but in a different way. She's going to be thinking about what kind of world she's creating for her brother, for the other vault dwellers, for the children who are going to grow up in the wasteland. She's going to want to leave them something better than what she inherited. Not a perfect world, because that's impossible, but a world where things are getting better instead of worse. A world where people have hope instead of just despair. A world where the future is something to look forward to instead of something to fear. And Maximus is going to be thinking about what he wants to be remembered for. Not as a Brotherhood knight, because that's not who he is anymore. Not as a traitor, because he doesn't see his defection as betrayal. But as someone who chose principle over convenience, who chose love over duty, who chose to build instead of destroy. He's going to want to be remembered as someone who mattered, who made a difference, who left the world a little bit better than he found it. These three characters, with their different perspectives and different goals, are going to be united by this common desire to create something meaningful. And that's going to be what carries them through all the violence and loss and trauma of Season 2. Not the hope that they'll survive, because survival is never guaranteed in the wasteland, but the hope that what they're doing matters, that their struggles mean something, that they're part of something larger than themselves. Season 2 is going to end with that hope intact, but tested. They're going to have won some battles and lost others. They're going to have made progress but also suffered setbacks. And they're going to be facing their biggest challenge yet, the confrontation with the Brotherhood and whatever they find in the vault where Janie might be. But they're going to face it together as a family, and that's going to make all the difference. The vault where Janie is supposedly located is going to be unlike any vault we've seen before. It's going to be Vault-Tec's crown jewel, the place where they put the children of executives and high-ranking employees. The experiment here wasn't about testing human behavior under stress or deprivation. It was about creating the perfect next generation of Vault-Tec leadership. These children were going to be raised with every advantage, given the best education, the best resources, the best of everything. But they were also going to be indoctrinated completely, raised to believe that Vault-Tec's mission was sacred, that the vaults were humanity's only hope, and that they had a responsibility to continue their parents' work. The vault is going to be pristine and almost unsettling in how perfect it is. Clean white walls, functioning technology, hydroponic gardens producing fresh food. It's going to look like the propaganda version of vault life that Lucy grew up believing in. But there's going to be something deeply wrong about it, an uncanny valley quality where everything is too perfect, too controlled. The residents are going to be polite and well-educated and completely devoted to Vault-Tec's ideology. They're going to speak in the same cadence, use the same phrases, smile the same way. They're going to be less like people and more like products, which is exactly what Vault-Tec wanted. When Lucy, the ghoul, and Maximus finally get inside, assuming they survive the Brotherhood attack or find a way to postpone it, they're going to be treated as guests initially. The Vault Dwellers are going to be curious about Surface Dwellers, but in a detached, clinical way. They're going to ask questions like scientists studying specimens, and they're going to be completely unaware that anything Vault-Tec did was wrong. They've been taught that the experiments were necessary, that the apocalypse was inevitable, that Vault-Tec saved humanity. They genuinely believe they're the good guys. Lucy is going to try to explain the truth to them, to show them the evidence from the database, and they're going to look at it and rationalize it. They're going to say that the ends justified the means, that you can't make an omelet without breaking eggs, that their parents made hard choices for the greater good. It's going to be like talking to a wall, and Lucy is going to realize that these people are beyond reaching. They've been indoctrinated so thoroughly that no amount of evidence is going to change their minds. They're true believers, and true believers are the most dangerous people in any ideology. The ghoul is going to be searching frantically for Janie while this is happening. He's going to be going through records, questioning residents, trying to find any trace of his daughter. And eventually, he's going to find her. But it's not going to be the reunion he imagined. Janie is going to be in her late 20s or early 30s, depending on when she was put in cryosleep and when she was woken up. She's going to be beautiful and poised and completely unrecognizable as the little girl the ghoul remembers. And she's going to be one of the Vault's leaders, one of the people most committed to Vault-Tec's ideology. The ghoul is going to approach her, And she's not going to recognize him. How could she? He's a ghoul, a monster, nothing like the father she remembers. He's going to tell her who he is, and she's going to be skeptical. She's going to think it's a trick, or a delusion, or some kind of wasteland madness. And the ghoul is going to have to prove it, to tell her things that only her father would know. Stories from her childhood, private moments, the last thing he said to her before the bombs fell. And slowly, reluctantly, she's going to start to believe him. But belief isn't acceptance. Janie is going to be horrified by what her father has become. She's going to see him as a victim of the wasteland, a cautionary tale about what happens when you reject Vault-Tec's protection. And she's going to try to convince him to stay in the vault, to let them help him, to give up his violent wasteland existence and live in safety. She's going to genuinely believe she's offering him salvation. And the ghoul is going to realize that his daughter has been turned into a Vault-Tec propagandist, that the little girl he loved is gone, replaced by someone who's been programmed to serve the organization that destroyed the world. He's going to try to reach her, to break through the indoctrination. He's going to tell her about Barb, about what her mother did, about the conspiracy and the experiments and the deliberate destruction of the world. And Janie is going to defend her mother. She's going to say that Barb was a visionary, that she made hard choices, that she saved humanity by ensuring that the vaults would survive. She's going to have an answer for everything, a rationalization for every atrocity, and the ghoul is going to realize that he's lost her, not to death, but to something worse. She's alive, but she's not his daughter anymore. She's Vault-Tec's daughter now. This is going to break the ghoul in a way that nothing else has. He survived 2 centuries of horror, but this is the thing that finally destroys him. He's going to collapse not physically but emotionally, all the walls he's built around himself crumbling. And Lucy is going to be there, and she's going to hold him while he falls apart, because that's what family does. Maximus is going to stand guard, making sure no one interrupts, giving the ghoul the space to grieve for the daughter he's lost twice. But the moment isn't going to last long, because Janie is going to make a decision. She's going to decide that the ghoul and his companions are a threat to the Vault's security and to Vault-Tec's mission. She's going to order the Vault's security forces to detain them, to separate them, to begin the process of rehabilitating them. It's going to be done with clinical efficiency, no anger or malice, just the cold certainty that this is the right thing to do. And the ghoul is going to have to fight his way out of a vault run by his own daughter, killing people she's responsible for, destroying the perfect little world she's been living in. Lucy is going to try to find another way, to negotiate, to convince Janie that they're not enemies. But Janie isn't going to listen. She's going to see Lucy as a corrupted vault dweller, someone who was exposed to the wasteland and lost her way. She's going to pity Lucy, which is somehow worse than hatred. And Lucy is going to realize that some people can't be saved, that sometimes the indoctrination is too deep, and the only thing you can do is protect yourself and move on. The escape from the vault is going to be chaotic and violent. The security forces are going to be well-trained and well-equipped, better than anything they've faced except maybe the Brotherhood. But they're also going to be predictable, following protocols and procedures, which gives our protagonists an advantage. The ghoul is going to be fighting with a desperate fury, not caring about his own safety, just wanting to get out before he has to hurt his daughter directly. Maximus is going to be using his Brotherhood training, turning it against people who fight like the Brotherhood, and Lucy is going to be the one keeping them together, making sure they don't get separated, finding the path to the exit. They're going to make it out, but barely. And as they're leaving, the ghoul is going to look back one last time. He's going to see Janie standing in the vault entrance, watching them go with that same clinical detachment. And he's going to realize that this is goodbye, that he's never going to see her again, that the search that defined his existence for 2 centuries is over and he has nothing to show for it. The daughter he loved is dead, replaced by a stranger who wears her face. And he's going to have to live with that. Outside the vault, they're going to find that the Brotherhood has set up a perimeter. The battle that was interrupted is about to resume, but something has changed. The ghoul has nothing left to lose now. He's found his daughter and lost her in the same moment, and the grief has burned away the last remnants of his humanity. He's going to go into that fight like a force of nature, killing with an efficiency and brutality that terrifies even Lucy and Maximus. He's going to be trying to die, essentially, throwing himself at the Brotherhood with no regard for survival. Because what's the point of surviving now? What's he been surviving for?